All right, it is 10 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and if I could have a motion to approve today's agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Armstrong, second by Holmes. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, if we could stand, please, in honor of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, first up, we have Mr. Sunderman. Hey, Darren, come on up. Yeah, if you would, please, try to adjust the microphone, or... Huh?
I'll talk loud. Ooh.
Okay, well, just so the Zoomers can hear you.
Okay, all right.
All right.
Well, I think you guys have got the budget in front of you. Is there any,
You
you want to
know,
start with the expense page or the revenue page, or?
probably with the expense page, but no, I don't have it in front of me yet.
Oh, okay. I mean, there was no major changes to my budget,
Okay,
just some minor things here and there.
sanitary.
It's in the back, oh, huh?
Yeah, it's sort of
Kind of in the
two-thirds
middle, yeah. Environmental specialist,
Oh,
is what it's labeled.
well, I've got sanitary.
Oh, okay.
I like that term better.
Sanitary and
Yeah,
environmental
it's
specialist.
Sanitary. It's
So yours is marked environmental specialist.
Huh, yeah, I'm a little better.
Did you find it?
It's right behind Jacob, it's right behind the district court. And
Maybe I've got it, but I don't come too far.
medical examiner, farm, weed. Those are all in front.
I see weed, okay.
Okay, start about there and flip back and you'll find it, I think, 3 back.
Just ahead of a reef in my book.
There it is.
Yeah, I'm just ahead of reef in mine.
Environmental specialist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or sanitarian.
Or sanitary. Yeah, whatever you like.
Whatever it's labeled.
That's what it is, okay.
All right, so, nothing really to point out. Did anybody have any questions on it? I mean, you're showing a salary increase per the compensation board, correct? Nothing, your telegraph is different because of the location
The
change.
move, that would be the biggest change really, is that telephone bill. Telephone and internet,
So were you getting that basically free before?
apparently.
Okay,
I mean, I suppose just at the other building,
you weren't being charged, in other words. at the
correct,
other building.
correct.
Okay.
I was paying a cell phone bill,
Oh,
but not a bill for internet and landline service.
okay. So,
Otherwise, there was just some minor,
okay, travel and entertainment, and I call it travel and entertainment, that's the wrong term, meals, lodging.
Meal,
Right, private business, we call it travel and entertainment. But,
right. We just didn't have much this year, of
No,
course.
do you anticipate there'll be much? will
They're
be
talking
some
about
catch-up?
doing more in-person meetings again.
Okay. So when you go out and do, tests on septic systems,
Mm-hmm.
where is that expense reflected in the budget, Darren?
Well, the main expense would just be under the
Regulation.
vehicle, because I drive the county truck out there, and,
Okay.
but there's really no,
No other.
And his labor.
No.
yeah.
yeah, it's all just my time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other expense questions? Okay, let's go to the revenue side. Looks like COVID kind of squashed the growth a little bit on
Well, we
some of the
didn't,
revenue.
yeah, there weren't as many inspections, but that's also due to, I'm not the only person that can do an inspection of a septic system in Page County.
Okay,
I mean, anybody that's licensed in the state can go to any county and do an inspection. So you can come from anywhere. So some people want to use the county sanitarian and other people don't, just for various reasons.
right. So, is there any way of knowing how many non-county inspections occurred? Do we keep a record of that in any way?
And what was it?
Well, an outside vendor comes in and does an inspection.
Yes.
Do we have a record of that?
Yes, a time of transfer inspection, no matter who does it, gets sent to my office, it gets sent to the DNR, and then also to the person that requested it.
Okay.
But no, I get them and then I put them in my files in the office.
Is there anything we've learned since you've been on the job over the last few years? Is it trending about the same? Is there an increase in outside vendors? I'm just kind of curious.
Probably more outside,
Okay,
probably. And some counties, honestly, some counties don't have their sanitarian do the inspections because they view it as a conflict with private business. But, so I don't, I tell people they have a choice. They can use me or hire outside.
sure.
And I just leave it at that.
Are the costs similar? Do you know?
Very similar. Yep. Probably within $25 of each other.
Okay. So the private water well grant program, which I had the opportunity to take advantage of.
Yeah.
That's a great program. Are you getting many inquiries on that?
We still do. Yep. I've got a couple I'm waiting on now because the weather changed and they haven't been able to plug the wells. And just to go over that quick, because I know Jacob, yeah, so, if you have an abandoned well on your property, you could call me, or there are contractors that can do it. And we would plug the well. You can get up to $500. I call it cost share. It's a reimbursement. You can get $500 per well and $300 if you have a cistern. And there's a lot of old cisterns still out there. We just did a farmstead kind of in your area, and there was 2 wells and a cistern, and he didn't even know the cistern was there until the dozer started running, and he knocked the top of it off. Yeah. So, and how that works is you would do the work or have a contractor do the work, submit the bills to my office. The county pays you. I turn it into the auditor's office, and the county cuts you a check, and then I submit to the grant, and then the grant reimburses the county. So it's kind of a drawn out process. Sometimes it takes a couple months,
But if you've got one, it's a nice.
It does it the right way. And
Yeah.
wells are supposed to be
right.
filtered the right way to make it right. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So you're projecting revenues down about 6% is what it looks like.
And actually, I just trimmed, I know you can't see, for a couple of the lines. We've never brought in that kind of revenue.
Okay.
So I guess I tried to make it a little more realistic, other than it looked like every year I was not bringing in.
Right.
I trimmed a couple of them down to like $1,000 on, well, for one was perk tests, because I just haven't been able to do that many over the years. So I thought, well, I'd make it look more realistic.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate that. That's one thing that this budget confuses a lot of folks on. When you do your year-end projection, like you're down 6%.
Right.
That's against the budgeted number, not the actual number.
Right.
And it would be nice, and I don't know if the system can do that or not, but it would be nice to know that percentage in relation to actual dollars.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, any other questions? Well,
I don't think so.
okay, hearing none, then I'd like a motion, please, to accept the budget as presented from Darren.
I'll make that. I'll go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'll second Jacob's motion.
Okay, Jacob with the motion, Alan with the second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay. Motion carries. Thank you, Darren. And now the
Thank
tanning
you.
ordinance. What's this about?
Yeah. Well, basically, the state no longer allocates money to Iowa Department of Public Health to oversee the tanning program. So then they basically said to the counties, you can either continue the program or you can discontinue the program. Our Board of Health has chose to continue doing the tanning inspections. And I should say, it's nothing new. I've done them since I started. I mean, we've always been doing it. It was just under the state's guidance. So we basically put together an ordinance, from other counties, so that way we weren't just recreating everything. And took it through our attorney's office next door here, and he's approved it. There was really no major changes. So I think we sent that to you, didn't we?
I don't remember
No,
getting
I
it.
didn't.
Did you get it?
No, I
No?
don't.
Okay.
I don't have the new one. No, I know I've been at meetings when you've discussed it,
Okay.
but I haven't seen
And
it.
if you want it, I can sure forward it to y'all, but it's so I can go in and inspect the tanning facilities. It's basically checking for safety, the signage. Tanning facilities have to have what they call cards. I've never used a tanning facility, but I've learned a lot. basically, so you monitor the amount of time that you go into the tanning bed. And then some of it is the bed itself, the bulbs, they use timers, so you have to check all that stuff.
Sure, okay.
So,
Well, if you don't mind, would it hold you up if, we didn't act on today? If we had a copy of it to look at, to see what
Yeah.
we're approving, and then we could get it on Tuesday?
yeah, and I apologize, I thought I emailed it, but,
And if you did, it ended up in spam, it's been.
yeah, I'll go, when I go back to the office, I'll send it. And
Okay, and then we can get it on the agenda for Tuesday for discussion, discuss and approve.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure it's fine, just like to read it, and,
Yeah,
not take the time today to read it.
okay, yeah, I understand
okay.
that. I understand that.
Okay, excellent. Well, thanks, Darren.
Yep, thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, we're a little bit ahead of schedule, so we will stay ahead of schedule by waiting till 10:15. Okay. Is there a coffee downstairs by chance? There is? No, it won't. Okay. Pardon me. There is, okay. I'm gonna, since we're 4 minutes early, I'm gonna. Yeah, get my exercise in. I am.
I guess technically, from part of that, we should, and we could probably, I guess, I'm not part of the tariff, so that's a regulation. We'll take it, that's a problem. We didn't have that, so we should probably do that.
I'll give you credit.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
She's trying to get used to the stay at home type thing, so I actually feel crazy. She's still up at the airport. Looks like she's gonna be take over. The little TV with Julie's.
I think
Yeah,
we're
she's still kind of up in the air, but she wants to. Oh, yeah. And of course, like she said, the drama from the previous job follows, and now it's at the airport.
You must be crazy.
Yeah, conservation.
I'm lucky to get one of these.
Yeah, I ended up moving my office over there, so, yeah, because me and Charlie were in the one room. Yeah, we were lucky to do each other. You know what, I'll just go over there. Yeah, we're trying to make it clear up a lot of our space. Slowly but surely. Yeah. We're getting the office pretty well squared away, but we still got all those shed buildings in the back, they're full of papers from 20, 30 years ago, so. Yeah, we gotta. Oh, yeah, we're at, I mean, only half the year, we're at 75%, or protected already, so yeah, it was, once we were able to put the parks back, it was half. Yeah, it was, I mean, it was really good for us, but. We talked about it a little more last night, something like, just be cost effective. We had a drain down probably about 2 feet, and then we stopped because we actually hit the line, so we hit the drain. We hit, we're almost at it, basically hit the bottom of the pond. Yeah, so hopefully we're gonna get and cost, we agree for basic our equipment, so we can grant that here also.
All right, we'll resume, but before we ask public health to come forward, point of order, with regard to the tanning ordinance, if I could get a motion to table that until Tuesday, that's probably the.
I'll make a motion.
Second that. Okay, we have motion and second to table the tanning ordinance to Tuesday. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, great. Public health. Do you have anybody joining us by Zoom?
Sorry, what?
Is there anybody joining us?
Brandy is on.
Well, Jonna and Tish are both on Zoom.
Oh, okay.
Yep, I see John. I see Tish.
Oh, John is there?
Up there, I see Tish. Yep.
Yep, okay. Good morning, Tish. Good morning, John. And good morning, Jessica. So let's get her public health budget out here.
Okay, so we'll go over the expenditures first.
Okay. Everybody find it in their binder?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, let's go.
Okay, so this year was a little different due to COVID. I didn't know really what to expect. So I did my budget with the anticipation that, fingers crossed, COVID is gone by December. So we did do the salary. We followed the comp board recommendations on all the staff except for mine. We had met, my board chair, Chuck Nordyke, had met with Melissa and I about my salary and how low my salary is. So we did I believe it was a 6.9% increase on mine as opposed to the 4%. On the first page of the expenditures, you can see at the very bottom, that's some travel expenses for Brandy's position. That has decreased. We do anticipate that continuing to decrease just because of COVID. She can't get out as much to all of the counties that she has to go to. On the next page, you can see a 1,900% increase on the wages for the disease prevention and control. That is for our contact tracers and all of the extra time that we are spending to do the disease investigating and the contact tracing and our COVID clinics. So that's that extra staff that we have doing that. Down at the bottom, it's the disease prevention and control supplies. The state is giving us a good portion of the supplies that we need to do our vaccine clinics. However, there's a little bit of a cost increase that we will have to incur for that. So that is 42.86% higher than last year. Same thing with on the next page, it's the disease prevention and it's for mileage. That's going to be traveling to the COVID clinics. When we get into phase 1B, chances are we're going to have to go to the individual locations to do their vaccines. So that's going to be like the schools, the manufacturing companies, so on and so forth. So we will do those probably on site. And then that next section, the health administration, that's where my wages and FICA and everything comes into play. On page 4 of the expenditures, that's more of the second line down, that's more of the office supplies. So we are going through more paper than normal, we're going through more folders, just more of the general supplies, again, due to COVID. MediaCom, US Cellular down about a 3/4 way down the page, that's up 30%, and that's just the variance from moving over to the annex building. There was a little bit of an increase there. But if you see down at the bottom, there's a little bit of a decrease, and that is because we're sharing costs now with environmental health on some of those things.
So overall, with this as presented, it's a 13% increase request over last year's budget. And, on the additional COVID, line items, we are, I assume, backfilling that with CARES money or not?
I mean, we've submitted all of our requests, since we are now out of those CARES funds, we can't submit anymore, but I do know Chris is submitting what he can to FEMA. So some of these expenses might be covered by FEMA, but I don't know, Melissa, have we received any payments from FEMA yet?
I'd have to look back. I know we've got the CARES, I have to double check on the FEMA, but like with the FEMA, though, we, just as submit any of their overtime, any of those types of expenses. So, a lot of those will come back in for the additional. And then, I think at the beginning too, it was anything that wasn't budgeted.
Yes.
So like our disease investigators and things like that as well, correct?
Great.
And that's still the case too,
As
correct?
of right now, we have no idea when FEMA is gonna shut that off.
Right.
Okay,
So the CARES money's been exhausted, but on her side, the FEMA has not been exhausted
has not
yet.
been exhausted, and there was a pretty good, amount of dollars, that FEMA had allocated for that, and I don't know what the demand for it's been. I guess I just need to ask Chris where we are in that process. I know that a lot of it's been submitted,
Great.
and I don't know what we're waiting on. FEMA is,
It's a slow process.
yes, they're historically slow, and the demand on their resources has been incredible with
Great.
wildfires and floods and COVID. So,
We did have a meeting with the state yesterday. There's discussion about more funds coming into public health. So we don't know yet if that's going to come to us directly. We're hoping, and that will be strictly for helping with the COVID vaccine clinics. So we might get, we might get some more funds depending on what the government decides to do.
I just have a question. What workman's comp insurance fund, what is that? I don't know why did it go up? I don't know.
The workman's comp,
Yeah.
I'm not sure why that went up. It's just
It's
something that,
overall based on the
Yeah.
county,
Okay.
Armand with them.
Okay.
and then we percentage it out based on the department.
Jess, is there any way, well, let's go to the revenue page. Oh, wait. Alan just stepped out, but revenue-wise, tell us what you want us to know about this budget. It looks like it's up considerably.
yeah, so the revenue is informing, calling, we are going to start doing that. So there's a little bit of an increase. That's from the maternal child health program. So once we get Leslie trained, she will start doing that. So we will have some revenue there. That's not something that we know for certain. It's a month by month, but just depending on how many phone calls we can make.
Is that on, where is that exactly page?
Oh, I'm sorry, on the first page, very bottom.
Here at the bottom, okay.
Yep.
Gotcha, okay, at $4,800.
As far as our grants, so far what we've been told from the state, they are basically staying the same. Hopefully there's no major decrease. Historically, our local public health grant does decrease a few $100s every year. They haven't given me any hints if that's going to be the case this year, or it might even be more, who knows. Immunization grant stays usually the same. Tobacco grant, it's a couple $100s more this year, so that's good.
Of these four grants that you're listing as revenue, are the determinations at approximately the same time in the calendar? Or will we know on a staggered basis about those?
It'll be on a staggered basis. So like the tobacco one, we already know for sure. That came out last month, which is abnormal.
Okay.
Normally it's usually February, March, but I anticipate February, March when, the immunization grant, the local public health grant, historically that's when we get notification and we can start grant writing on those specific grants.
Okay.
The tobacco grant's a big grant, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Of course, how many counties is she covering? 7 still?
6.
6 counties.
Yep. So the only other major The major decrease is on the third page, the immunizations, the private pay.
Okay,
So we've always gone out to the public and done immunization vaccine clinics. Well, you know, a lot of businesses are starting wellness programs, so they're doing them internally. And then we're competing with Hy-Vee now. A lot of people want that. There's
Fuel saver.
yes, fuel saver, thank you. A lot of people want that, so they're doing their, they're doing their vaccines there. So there was a small decrease on that one.
okay. Anything else you want us to know?
Well, that's really it.
I know we've talked about this multiple times through the course of this year with the challenges COVID has presented. Everybody in our organization, I feel, has done a superlative job. You guys have kind of been at the epicenter. Can you summarize for us the number of hours that you and your staff have averaged here in this COVID time?
So I do have that somewhere. So in December, my overtime hours were at 432, and Brandy's were at 223. Carmen's is at 48. I'm trying to not take Carmen off of Homemaker, so I haven't had her do a lot of the disease investigating because we feel like it's really important for her to stick with our Homemaker clients.
Sure.
We don't want to give those up. And then, you know, we also have Melinda Eaton, who we have as a disease investigator, Lori Gibson. Diamond does some disease investigating for us, so it's a substantial amount of hours that we are.
So without the overtime, help me out, I'm not a mathematician. How many work hours are there in a typical month if you have no overtime?
In a typical, no overtime, it's a standard 40.
So 40 times, 160 is what you figure from a budget, 160 hours. And so in the month of December, 160 times 4 plus these additional overtime hours is what you put in. Okay. Well, I'm telling you, we're blessed to have dedicated employees spending that much time. I know you're working 7 days a week, and thank you for that. Any other questions? Jonna or Tish, you're on the line as board members. Anything you'd like to add? Jonna's trying to unmute. I don't know. We can't hear you. But maybe not. I would ask Jonna and Tish a quick question. I know our auditor told me that the chairman of your board has inquired about 28E agreements with the county and the hospitals in Page County. Is there anything that your board needs from us, or is there any update you'd like to offer for that discussion? And for some reason, I think Jonna's trying to talk. I'm not sure. Jonna, if you were indeed trying to talk, you might throw your comment or question in the chat box.
I had a quick question. I had a resident call last night concerned about the vaccine, and I told him what you sent the email today, they're 85 years old, and they're wanting to get it, wanting to know when it's going to come. I told them, look like February 1st would be right.
Yep.
That's what you're estimating?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what they were, that's what I told them. I want to make sure that, does it look like that's pretty for sure, or as much as you know, or?
So on the state call yesterday, they said we can definitely count on February 1 or sooner. We're waiting until the 20th to see what's going to happen. We might have more vaccines that are opened up and given to us. So if that happens, then we will definitely start that phase 1B.
Is anybody 75 or older would be?
Right, so CDC has changed it to 65. However, in the state of Iowa, they have decided to keep it for right now at the 75, just because if you add those 10 years, that's an extra 2 million people that We just don't have the capacity to vaccinate quickly right now.
Okay. So do you mind giving us a quick primer on where we're at? I mean, because the classifications, I know it's kind of what you're.
Yeah, that email we got that showed the, 1B and whatever, all that, yeah.
Great. So they are anticipating.
Move that mic a little closer, please, I'm sorry.
Yep, can you guys hear me better?
Yeah.
Okay, so they are anticipating that phase 1B will start February 1, and that's going to include 75 and older and essential frontline workers like the law enforcement, fire department, teachers, social workers, just the people that fall into that group. And then phase 1C, ACIP has put out their recommendations. So CDC Federal has put out their recommendations. And IDAC has to get together to decide what they're going to do as the final recommendation. And then that's who we have to follow as far as who we can vaccinate. But it looks like it'll be that 65 and older, and then possibly 18 to 64 with underlying health conditions, and then more of the other essential workers.
Okay. So, and I think I've shared this with you, any new news regarding ministerial people who have been locked out of nursing homes for months? I know that there's been some interest on their part to be able to resume those visits. Do any words of encouragement you can give along that line?
Yeah, so that's been some heavy discussion on the state level where to fit those people, as well as like the attorneys and the magistrate. We have a lot of push to include those in phase 1B. They're still having discussions about that. They haven't quite decided yet.
And is it true, do states have the option to follow the CDC guidelines? So our guidelines are slightly different than those in Nebraska, correct?
Yes,
Okay. So that adds kind of to the confusion, I think.
it does.
All right, Jonna did text in and she's very proud of everything you and your staff have done, so thank you.
Do you know anything, and this might have been, I should ask this to the VA the other day. My grandpa was able to get his vaccine through the VA. Do you know anything about that? This guy was also, that I talked to last night, is also a veteran. Is that something that they can do in Iowa quicker?
Yes, so the VA is getting their vaccines directly from the federal government. That doesn't have to go through the state. Whereas like ours in the hospitals has to be filtered through the state.
So I told him maybe to reach out to the VA.
Yes.
It would probably be quicker.
He should actually be able to get his right now if he reaches out to the VA.
Okay, well, I'll tell him that.
Yeah.
So Jacob, I just got an update. This is Brandy Powers. I just got an update from the VA clinic in Shenandoah, and they told me that they are taking appointments in the Omaha VA clinic through, regardless of age and regardless of health status, as long as they are under the healthcare of VA.
I'll tell him. I mentioned that might be possible, but this was in Missouri, so I didn't know if it applied to Iowa. I don't know how that worked. But yeah, thank you.
And then we received the Moderna vaccine in our first batch. Is it going to be Moderna all the way through for us, or do you know?
We don't know for sure. We do know that we will probably not get the Pfizer just because we do not have the capacity to store that. That's the ultra cold. Nobody in the county has capacity to store that cold of a vaccine. My hope is that we stick with Moderna, or there's a Johnson & Johnson one that's going to come out hopefully soon. That's a one dose.
It's a one dose?
Right. So as of right now, we don't really know which ones we'll continue to
So
get.
just keep watching for announcements.
Yep.
It's a changing landscape.
Yep.
Well, any other questions of Jess?
I don't. Done a great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Well, if they're hearing no other questions, there's a motion. I would ask for a motion to approve this budget.
I'll make a motion to approve the public health budget.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Jess.
Thanks. All right.
Thanks, staff.
And your staff, Darren, thank you. We are a little bit ahead of time again before we talk, although we can probably jump in. Before we do, wanted to visit a little bit about our minutes for this week. When will we have those? Will that be before Tuesday to?
Yep, we'll send them all out at the end of today. We talked yesterday. I'd asked you guys if that was okay.
Yeah, right. Well, the reason why I bring it up is I wanted to get into our minutes. When we discussed the conservation budget a few days ago, I made a comment that one of the board's concerns from a historic standpoint is the fact that dollars have been allocated to some departments. I didn't spell out the department, but in the course of the conversation, in the course of what the media picked up, it was assumed that I was talking about conservation taking dollars for projects and turning them into salary dollars. That was not my intent, and my apology to anyone who I left that impression with. We have had historically, like I said, a department several years ago that was our common practice, and as a result, our board has kind of been hypersensitive about making sure that allocated dollars go toward projects if indeed that's what the discussion was. Our conservation board did do a great job of presenting. And then one other thing regarding the media, on KMA radio, apparently there was a mention of a slush fund, which when you use the term slush fund, if you're not in the Dairy Queen world, it's probably not a very positive fund. What was proposed by the Conservation Board was a revolving door fund that this board wanted to sit on, I think, for a year. But basically, the Board of Conservation had asked us to consider them retaining approximately 25% of their revenue so that they could, use that for bigger projects. And I met with the Conservation Board a few weeks ago and said that if there was no difference to you guys for this year, since we have a new budget year, a new fella, and we don't know how much time it's going to take, rather than getting into a revolving fund, can we just get a project? But anyway, that whole discussion kind of got misinterpreted a little bit and caused some confusion and caused some hurt feelings. And I just wanted to try to clarify that never, in my knowledge, has the Conservation Board treated those funds in that way. So thank you for, allowing me to clarify that. Okay. So let's go to the local option sales tax here in a few minutes. I guess we'll wait in case we have some folks on the line that want to join in, hear the discussion.
Excuse me for having.
Legal. Pardon me?
Excuse me, for having legal. I just not going to touch some of the issues I had in those.
Oh, well, hey, no apology needed.
It's better than it was a month ago.
This doctor promised me I'd be back to 100%. I'm close.
Back to normal?
Almost. When Jacob gets to be 52 years old, I'll be on his, to make sure he gets his, all of his exams done.
My wife started me talking about that.
I tell you what, Jacob,
That doesn't sound like a walk in the park.
that wasn't a walk in the park, but what I went through wasn't either. And if I wouldn't have been childish and immature about my behaviors, I probably would have saved myself a lot of risk.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty scary. So.
It's easy for the time to get by on it all, just.
It was
It's so
so, no, it was called immaturity. I had Dr. Rhodes 3 years in a row call me and say, Alan, you need to get this done. And I said, okay, so I set an appointment, and about a week before, I think, oh, man, I really need to go get my haircut. And it's amazing on how easy it was to come up with those pieces. I was just thankful that Lord protected me and not there before it was too late. So, if your healthcare official says it's time, I would listen. Do have an understanding for that, and Corey, if you want to listen.
I try to stay away from the play.
Jacob, up until 4 years ago, I only been to the doctor once in the last 20 years. And part of that, I still think it leads back to my parents. We were out on the farm, we were pretty well trained, we could take care of ourselves. We didn't need to go to the doctors unless it was an emergency. And that's just the way we were raised. My father had great insurance through the health cover, so it wasn't for insurance reasons. He just didn't think we needed to go. So we did.
Yeah, we grew up on Crib Salve and a Band-Aid. On Crib Salve and a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
It does work.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Do you have Crib Salve, Martin? Yeah, it will.
You know, bacon won't hurt it either. Used to wrap
You can
fingers.
still buy that stuff, do you know?
Yeah.
Oh, I reached out. Oh, I'll be darned. Yeah. Kind of almost like bag bomb or something.
I can still remember a cut that wasn't real deep. Dad would sprinkle some salt on it and get it to seal up pretty quick. So. Mhm. It'll do that. Mhm. Mhm. So can you be our apiarist? Is that how you say that word, apiarist? Okay. Yeah.
How many beekeepers are there in Page County? Does anybody know?
Not very many, not as many as there used to be. You know, we
I
used
know
to
that.
have, Dick, what's his name? Dick Blake covered a pretty good territory. He had 10 or 15 different people out there running hives, and he sold a lot of honey, but I don't know if there's anybody left or not. Yes, that's right. O'Hearn's, yep. Yep. Yeah, I'm sure there's a few, but compared to what it was 30 years ago, it's not near as. Oh.
Somebody's got hives on Scott Dixon, I don't remember who it was, but he brings in honey and barbecues on. Honey flavored.
Barbecues on it.
Something there.
Huh. Well, the old honeybee wars, there used to be a lot of it along the.
Yeah,
On the
we're
border.
famous for that.
Well, we're about a minute away from resuming. For those of you on Zoom, gonna try to keep to the schedule. There it is. All right, 10:45, and we're going to resume with local option sales tax dollars, and then we'll review any board control budgets that we started with on Monday. So any thoughts on this local option sales tax printout as presented as we discussed the other day that we need to add or delete?
The one thing, I don't know what we did with, like Angie's,
Yeah.
remodel, that'd be a courthouse. type
Yeah, do
thing.
we need to make a note on the,
Yeah, I have it in here.
okay,
We'll
okay,
have to have it on her budget then, we could put it in this.
On the community betterment portion, I just decreased that.
okay.
On the community betterment, Angie, coming out of
On
there?
on the community, I just, and it can come out of either property tax really for community betterment, but
Okay.
I just decreased that one capital projects line by the 20 and then I'll
Okay.
set hers up as a separate.
So that moves 20,000, is that how much? it is?
Yeah.
So the other thing I would ask, could we agree, and I don't know if this is absolutely the right number, but could we earmark, say, maybe out of that infrastructure budget, 40,000 of that could be used for any jail study, and then what's not used, kind of start building a fund so that if and when the jail is built, we could have a reserve there off of that line item. I don't know if 40,000 is the right.
Would we have to vote to spend it on the study still or not? To come out of here, or is it just?
We'd have to vote to approve the study, it would then just come out.
That's where it come from. I just don't want to charge too much for a study.
Yeah, I don't know. And by the way, I did contact Samuel's group. They'll be on our agenda February 2nd to make a presentation to us.
Okay.
But I don't know. I think we have general agreement here that, looking into a jail, and at some point Page County's interested in going down that path.
Maybe it's probably a good idea.
Earmark a little bit of it.
Now, if it goes in there, that's there for good. for jail,
Well,
for not.
yeah, it wouldn't move. I mean, we would reserve that, and then any, would be a reduction. If we had other jail expenses, it would reduce, whatever we can capture there would reduce the bond.
Yeah. Would that help Lyle's portion or the sheriff's portion at all if we do this?
Well, did we
Would
put
it save
the
anybody?
I don't
study
know.
in his budget?
I don't think we did.
we did.
No,
I don't think
no.
we did.
All there is in there is repairs after the inspections, but no cost of study. That would be separate.
And we need to wait to hear from them, but my anticipation is that their pitch will be $10,000 to $15,000. If I had to guess, that's what I would guess. And I don't know what all we get. We need to
Yeah, weigh that out, yeah.
Yeah, what we would get for that.
Mhm.
That would be, and then with regard, I called Chris yesterday. I think he's meeting today, trying to put some pressure on the people who he's waiting on a quote for the EMD. And if memory serves me right, when that discussion came up initially 2 years ago with the EMA board, the cost of that project was $70,000. And there just was no money. And then the other issue was that under that agreement with that particular vendor, the recertification cost was pretty high, and we had a fair amount of turnover, which meant that the ongoing maintenance cost was really going to be high. So it kind of just sat there for a while. And then ISIX, or the state where our radio program is, worked through, has now developed a statewide vendor at a considerable savings. And I'm thinking it's like $4,500 or something like that. And there are some minimal other costs, but as Chris kind of alluded to the other day, if we take that portion of the service, there's another portion that actually saves us money in another spot. So I don't know what that number would be, but I would like to think that we could get that number fairly close and agree that we would try to carve it out of the betterment, or, not betterment, the betterment.
The community betterment, yeah.
Hoping that that's accurate.
Is there any way with the dispatcher situation he brought up, is there any way to subsidize that out of here or not? Is that a whole separate thing? Their wages, the turnover after training seems to be probably the biggest personnel issue we got with pay. To me, because you have to train them, it costs money to train them, and then they're turning over like crazy.
Right.
And it would affect the whole county.
But until we actually see where the costs are everywhere else, I still don't know if that's the only issue.
It's the only issue.
being an employer, sometimes there's other issues too that maybe
Right.
I'm just not aware of yet. So,
Well, I think, I mean, I'll just, in the case of the jail, I told Lyle this, I believe that we have a bigger issue than just straight dollars.
mhm,
You know, if you look at our facility
yeah,
and you're trying to recruit somebody to come work there, it's not very attractive, and that's another reason. Plus, the safety factors, not that it's unsafe, I'm not saying that, but it's not where we all hope it would be. So I think that plays into some of that. As far as
Yeah.
turnover in the dispatch, it is disturbing if somebody, you know, one of our, key dispatchers goes to a county 60 miles away for an extra buck. But what, is it really money? Are there other things that drive that?
I haven't, it just seemed like there's a
I-
pattern, there's so many of them,
Yeah.
I believe, and that
And-
makes a pattern, not just one.
and one of the other issues too that we, you know, trying to discern over the years is jail versus jail and dispatch all in the same unit. And there are other options, you know, in other counties have them together, some don't. So we don't know how much impact when they go to another county, maybe that's why, you know, is that an issue? The other thing I was gonna say before we have the jail study, if you get time, talk to Lyle, see if he can give you a quick tour.
Yeah,
It was a real eye opener and it's just pretty fascinating. So they'll give you a great tour.
And we'll give you a great feel for why it's
Yeah.
hard to recruit
Yeah,
jailers.
yeah.
I just don't want to stay.
You probably won't have to.
If you behave, he might not keep you.
You
So,
probably won't have to stay.
so, but, you know, to that point, Jacob, I mean, if we have some market, issues with our salaries
Mhm.
that need adjusting, I'm not opposed to adjusting. I would like to just see some more thought go into it as it relates to jailers and dispatchers. Give us a little more history. Don't just say, well, Montgomery County pays $1 more. Well, maybe they do. What about, I mean, let's, and look at it a little more strategically and see where the gap is. And it may be that we have bigger gaps than any of us know, bigger than one budget year would support. So
I'd like to also know what it costs to retrain somebody,
Mhm.
you know, what that's worth.
Well,
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
yeah,
train somebody for a month or two, and then they're 6 months,
Yeah.
and they get some skills when they leave, that's kind of expensive.
Of course, in the case of this latest one who was just hired, there was no training because she was a certified dispatcher and then took our job. And then apparently where she had come from, missed her and said, oh, we're going to pay you more money. And there's not a lot you can do about that.
yeah.
Those things happen. So, but
Is there anything else out of this local option we can do to relieve the budget a little, like to shuffle things around?
I wanted to clarify, did you want 40,000 for the jail study? Or did you want to allocate the 40,000 plus that remaining? Because you had more under the community betterment that, you know, like once you deduct the portion for the treasurer's office remodel, that will still be there. Did you want to put both of those towards?
The jail study, we were gonna put under the infrastructure.
infrastructure, I thought, that 40 grand there. But
You don't have 40 there, you only have 19,879,
Because the windows are already spoken.
oh, okay.
unless you want to.
No.
So like under
So,
the
no,
property tax, you had the 37, so I was gonna put that as a just rate and then
Yeah,
deduct the
I'm
rest.
sorry.
from the community.
Absolutely, yeah.
But did you wanna put a total of 40 or total between those two, you had 55,534?
Between the jail and Angie, or between the
No,
jail?
after Angie and after Angie, and then that would be between the community center and the property tax, you had a total of 55,534.
Oh.
So it would be an additional 15,534, but I didn't know if you wanted that for, I was confused if you wanted that for the jail or if you wanted that for something else.
Feelings on the board?
Which line are we on? I'm trying to find a line.
Well, you'd be tying up out of the property tax relief, correct?
The capital projects is where you're
And
at,
capital,
all the capital
yeah,
project
yeah,
lines.
all three of those lines, yeah.
Yeah, all right, I get it.
You know, I definitely like the idea of the EMD coming out of that too. Can we, can we take 50,000 out of capital projects of the three, split it in between what's left out of the community betterment, and have 50,000 for the jail study and the EMD set aside? So we
So
can,
you want,
out of those three,
so I
and
think-
plus Angie's 20.
Okay, let me do some math here real quick.
Yeah, for the jail study to be studied, savings for jail, or even repairs to the jail we have, like something to
Yeah,
the jail.
right.
Although he does have, and that would be one, he does have a repair fund.
Unless it's more repairs than what we've had in the past few. And we've been fairly lucky the last few years.
Some kind of remodel instead of something else or
I
something.
think 17, 18 was the last bad year maybe on some of the big problems.
So. My numbers aren't pretty there.
And I guess I hate to ask a silly question, but out of this year, do we still have anything left in local option sales tax? If the EMD, we find out the information, we can just make an amendment and move on it right away.
So,
And like the jail study, if we do a jail study, it's gonna actually have to come out of this year, correct?
If you do it before July.
Right, yeah. So
I don't know.
do we even need to look at next year? Do we need to just look at what's?
Pull it out of this
Yes,
year?
yeah.
And then keep these free?
Let's leave those alone for now.
Could be.
We can put Angie into there, but if we even have sooner,
so,
what do we have left in this year's?
okay, so I moved the treasurer's office down under the infrastructure portion.
Right.
And then I just, if it's okay, tweaked, the window, $121, so it made it an even 20,000 for her, and then I just shorted the windows. I didn't feel like.
I guess my question is, do we have in this year, this current year of 1920, or 2020 and 21, do we have local option sales tax where we can go ahead and do that jail study out of this year, local option, and the EMD, so we can get those for discussion and do it before July, if needed?
Let me look back at that. Hold on, let me grab last year.
Is there any other budget items we can move into here to relieve the budget? That's my question. What do you think?
The other thing, like on the sheriff's department,
Like the vest or
you
something?
could potentially look at either increasing, like, we've done transfers, to law enforcement, and we consider that community betterment and temporary tax relief. So you could actually do a larger, transfer into there, and then that relieves, when you transfer it from local option to general.
Relieve
and
that.
Because there is a pretty big, with reserve deputies and vests, that was a pretty big issue, yeah.
So this year you did, you had that 200,000 for the annex, that was under
Right,
infrastructure
right.
though. I have to double check if that study would be considered part of infrastructure. I'm not certain if it would, like a capital project would be, but I'm not certain if the study itself would be, so I have to double check on that.
Okay.
But if not, you have it under infrastructure, so you could, how it's broken out this year, if it would, I'd have to double check on that, if it would be an allowable.
How about the
expense for there.
EMD, would that be, no?
EMD would, I think the jail study
Your
and
EMD would
the,
be community betterment or
And-
property tax relief.
What about treasurer's office?
You could do the treasurer's office under the infrastructure, but I don't know if she could get that completed by June 30, that's the. Angie?
That would be more contract,
I,
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Mr. Depp.
sorry, obviously that would lay more on the contract, and we can make it work in our office, literally, depending on if it's at 10, if it's at within this fiscal year, and also include it on HVAC, and I call it here after.
Okay.
And that's already budgeted, so I mean, it's not,
so that would help out,
Well, that would give you more money this year even. We would,
Right.
that's gonna be on
yeah,
current year.
yeah.
So we wouldn't have to take it out of.
right.
Say that again.
You'll just let me know if I'm supposed to try to get it done this year.
Well,
I think
why don't you
you-
get the numbers and ask them that question and say, hey, if we could free up the dollars before the end of the year, can you schedule it? And then find out from your HVAC people, same thing, number one, you still have to get a cost quote from them, but scheduling wise. But didn't you state yesterday that really now, from your office standpoint, would be the best time of the year?
Yeah. So I'd be all for it.
Yeah, I'd be all for that too, if it can be scheduled.
Okay.
So then do you want me to,
Don't have Angie in there for next year.
okay,
We can leave that out.
If I'm not, sorry, I don't know if I can talk here, but if I'm not in there for next year and I can't get it done.
We'd still have the capital projects dollars already spoken for this year. We
It would
should
just
be
carry
okay.
over.
you just have to amend then?
We'd have to
We'd have-
amend. So it'll be on us,
It
not
won't
you.
be on our budget at all.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
So then back to the EMD,
so how much do you, I guess, how much do you want for EMD?
I'd say between 7,500 and 10,000, from what I remember the last main conversation we had. Not the last 2 days, but 10 was the tops and 75 was kind of the bottom end, if I remember right, wasn't it?
Well, I remember it being less.
Yeah, well, but that included some extra, which if we didn't know if we were gonna get back some things.
Well, but what is not factored in, there's a savings if you,
Right.
and I don't know what the actual net added dollars are.
Right,
Is that in the budget anywhere?
No.
It's not there, no.
no.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I'm clear with all of you.
On the EMD, is there
I
dollars?
put, yeah, so I put the jail study under property tax relief. I will double check if that can be paid out of infrastructure.
And that would be on the 2021 year, correct? Or would that be
It would
next
be
year?
21, 22.
Okay, so we would leave the study until after July, which would probably be fine. Because that way we've got another inspection, we get that report back. We don't need a study before all that is done anyway.
No, we don't, I guess,
Yeah.
I mean, in the big picture, it probably doesn't matter. However, there is some urgency
Mhm.
because the project such as the jail is gonna be a several-year project. And so the sooner we get started, the better. I mean, in my mind, but a few months won't matter.
Yeah. Well, do we have funds left from this year local option sales tax to do the jail study of 15,000? Anywhere in the,
I'd have to double check, because the only way you'd have them is under that infrastructure
Okay,
portion, so
okay.
I'm not certain if you can use that on a study. I'd have to double check. I know it would be going towards the project, so I
Right.
think you potentially could, but I'd have to reach out and double check and make sure that that's a.
Are there any available CARES dollars that are unallocated that could pay for that study?
As of right now, like, I mean, like, you've had departments turn in for that, CARES funding, your CARES funding reimbursement's been exhausted already,
Okay,
as of right now.
okay. So, well.
But you could, I mean, like, even if you put, are you thinking, okay, so if you put the property tax side and you put that towards the jail study,
Mhm.
under community betterment, you'd need another $2,224 for the jail study to put that at 40,000. Do you think that's gonna be enough though?
For a jail study, I think jail study is gonna be 10 to 15,000. I think the additional dollars above that are just a way to start saving.
Okay.
So that number.
And then I put EMD under community betterment for the 10,000.
Okay.
So you
And-
still had some funding that you were gonna allocate towards capital projects, of 25,534. But, you could choose, like Jacob had asked, in the past, we've done a transfer to general basic for law enforcement to reduce some of those. So potentially you could use the rest of that
To put toward.
toward that if you.
Any of those things for law enforcement that would then reduce their budget,
Mhm.
25,000.
Right, right.
Well, it's not gonna reduce their budget because all the.
It's
expenses
just
are
going
still
to
there.
reduce
It's
the
gonna-
amount of transfer.
It's gonna reduce.
So it
It'll
reduces-
basically build up
Yeah.
the general basic fund because you're at the 3.5. So, I mean, it's just gonna give you more fund balance than there because you're gonna transfer from local option
So
to,
if Lyle asked for 8,000 per vest or whatever it was, and if we gave him 8,000 there, it won't take that 8,000 off the budget anymore.
I mean,
We
potentially
could.
you could if you
But that would help
chose to
clean up
just
that.
take it directly out of local
Just apply it
option.
to a couple things.
But my point with that is like your general basics at the 3.5, as of right now, you're not exceeding that. So, I mean,
We can build savings.
yeah,
you're saying,
yeah.
Up to 3.
I mean, we've never, I mean, not that we can't, but we typically haven't ever gone below that 3.5 just because, most places struggle to even stay at the 3.5.
Yeah, what's Fremont County now? They're one of the higher ones.
I think around 4.
That doesn't matter. But we really don't want to go above that.
So we always
You
try to
mean
keep it at that
above
3.5.
that and explain this to me and what we have saved or what we don't have saved. What do you think?
So anytime we transfer from like local option to like the general fund, it basically then is just gonna basically increase your general basic at the end, the fund balance at the end. So if there would be, an emergency then or something,
We have savings.
you'd have a savings there, yes.
But we were probably incredibly high before we had all the going ahead with the paying the weird projects. Right, is that what drained our savings down? That's a whole different animal.
That's a whole,
secondary road.
yep, because secondary roads is a totally separate fund. So,
Okay.
it's a restricted fund, so the only thing that can go through secondary roads fund is your secondary roads expenses.
Okay, so,
Just second.
so is there any money that we can, how much do we have to keep it at that 3.5 or wherever we want to be? Is there any room there? In money we can take and apply to tax, to budget items to relieve the taxing ask?
I mean, potentially you could, I mean, there are, I think, other things potentially you could consider putting in local option, again, just paying it out of local option, if that makes sense. From,
The budget, okay.
yeah,
And without hurting getting us down to that level, you don't want to go below for savings, is what I'm saying. How much room do we have?
well, with
Very
our
much.
general basic right now, we're pretty, it kind of depends on what level of comfort you guys as the board want.
Right.
So with,
December fund balance, $3,731,000.
so, yeah, as of yesterday, with I think everything you guys had in there, it was right about 2.5 million was in the general basic. So, I mean, you have a pretty good balance there already. You do have general or public health as a sub fund under that. And then your general supplemental it's at 1.388, and at the end of this year, you'd be right around 1.386. So, if you take, and that's a little bit, that's not, I wouldn't say official yet, just because we don't have in all of, your emergency management, because that usually pulls from your general supplemental too. So Chris has given me some estimated numbers, but not any final numbers yet regarding that. So,
I'm not even sure when his board meets. Last I heard, he was looking at first week in February, but don't have a date.
but I mean, so I guess, are you wanting to lower it so you're not at the 3.5? I guess.
No, so where do we have to get to 3.5? That's the general number we try to hit. Are we there?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're there.
Right at 3.5. So
Yeah.
there's no more money we can move from, we could apply to the budget from general option, is what you're saying? Or we're gonna dip below 3.5.
No, you can, it's just gonna, so you're currently right now, your levy's at 3.5 and you have I would say a good fund balance sitting in general fund, but you can always choose if you want to use some of that local option, like for law enforcement or something like that. And then what that does is it just, I mean, potentially, you're basically you're paying for an expense. So if you're paying for law enforcement per se, then you're paying for, more law enforcement out of your local option. So then it's just taking that and putting it towards law enforcement, but then when you're bringing that in, it's building up that general basic. So, it just basically increases that fund balance in at the end. Or you can take it and you can look at,
What we do with Andy's gonna help our ask, aren't we? By,
Yeah, by a little bit.
it's gonna change the budget to 20,000, basically, right? Because we're doing it on the capital
Oh.
project, it's not gonna,
Oh, we didn't have it in her budget before, right?
no, she
It's
did,
there.
but.
We did,
how to
but we took it
remember,
out.
You're not changing your levy. So your tax asking doesn't change, your tax asking is based on your levy amount.
right,
So-
but we could lower the levy to make it whatever we wanna make it. For the ask, we could take to a zero ask, right?
Yeah.
By just dropping a few pennies on the levy.
I'm
If we get the budget to come out at zero, I mean, if our budget comes out where we don't, this extra 145,000 this year, if we lower a few cents to make that zero, is that spent, that's factored, 145,000, we need that into the budget, right, that we have in place? Is that not right?
Yes and no, it depends on where you, it's kind of, there's a lot of moving parts in there. So it depends on where you want your fund balances. I mean, you could go in and you could choose to decrease some of your levies to get down to zero.
Well, I mean, if we
Overall.
find cuts, so if we cut 145,000, it's not gonna affect the savings, right? Because we're cutting expenditures, not,
Right.
so we can find cuts and.
I mean, you
take care
can
of
cut
those.
things, it's just, your tax asking is calculating what your property taxes are coming in at. So, like, your expenses figure into that because it's based on, I mean, it impacts your fund balance too, but that's also your property tax side that's coming in.
Because different years have been different numbers.
Correct.
All the way down through here, big numbers, different.
Yep.
numbers. But that's, I'm just trying to really think about this local
So,
option thing, the
I
fact that
mean,
we can use it.
if you wanted to look at reducing like a levy,
Yeah.
in the past, like if you look at that front sheet right there,
Mhm.
and this is just a thought for you guys, like in the last, oh gosh, I'm thinking general surplus at one point. I mean, like you can decrease, like your rural basic in 17-18 was at 2.8. So I mean, that's one area that you could go in and, you could allocate, directly to rural basic, because you do have some law enforcement paid out of rural basic too. So you could shift, instead of allocating to the general fund, you could shift and allocate like the 25,000 to, local option to rural basic, and then you could then look at that balance. And then based on the fund balance, we could potentially reduce that levy amount. Or you can look at, some things that are hitting your general supplemental too, and do the same with that. Did I throw a lot at you there? Did I confuse you?
No, well, I'm sort of trying to sort through it, there's a lot of moving pieces, like I said.
Aren't budgets fun?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm just, since we're talking about this local option sales tax, I'm just trying to make sure there's any way we can help before we start working on budgets and salaries, because that's next.
Right.
We're trying to find the money we can find here.
Right.
To
So I
apply.
guess my question to you is, and I guess it would be to the entire board, is would you guys prefer to use the remainder of this money and then allocate it to one of these, like somewhere where you're hitting general supplement or somewhere where you're hitting rural basic, in order to then decrease expenses out of there, which then you can look at and potentially reduce your tax asking based on that reduction?
How many dollars are you talking to be able to do? We've talked about so many different possibilities out of that fund. How many actual dollars, if you took that strategy, could you move? And then what do you lose by doing that?
Okay, you gonna give me about a 15-minute recess?
Absolutely.
Throw some things at you?
The other thing, I don't know if you probably know this, for every % of salary increase, what does that cost I didn't ask this for IFRS and all that put together, just as a whole. Can you figure that, your way to figure things?
I can, probably not in the next 15 minutes.
Well, just, kind of, is it every percent, 50,000 or 100, I mean, just ballpark it.
Right,
I don't know how to, because it's all in here, it's all in so many different departments, I don't know how to
Right.
figure that out, what it costs.
right,
It's just like social security, 6 2, and then all the way for 5
Right.
Medicare and your tax.
Right.
Depends
well,
on if
it
you're-
depends on the department, because they flex based on if you're,
Because law enforcement side.
right,
Dispatchers, I think, are at a higher level too, maybe, but each one is a little different.
That doesn't have to be exact science, it's just trying to get an idea for every percent. If you knew one, we'd know what 2, 3, 4.
Well, a simple way to do it, didn't you calculate what a 4% impact was? Of course,
Just on
maybe-
salary?
Yeah.
Just on salary
Just
alone.
on salary was 200,000, so for every percent is
So it'd be
5,000 or 50,000.
it was,
Be one way to figure it.
difference from this year, to last year, to this year was 187,312. We had an insurance savings too of 104,972. So if you look at the difference between insurance, salary increases this year with the insurance savings, you're at a total of 82,340 technically. And then two, I did look at this year's budget a year ago, I should say. Last year's budget, sorry. Last year's budget, and I compared budgeted to actual salaries out of those same line items. And the one thing about salaries is like you can't hit, I don't know if hit's the right word, but like I can't go in and pay for supplies out of a payroll line item at the end of the year. So if you have extra money sitting there, it's not like I can go in and take something else. Like Angie, if she has money for a part-time person at the end of the year, doesn't use all that, it's not like she can go in and buy like tables with it, or, you know, like you can't hit those payroll line items with anything else. But so I just pulled that to just as a reference. And so what we budgeted a year ago, salary-wise, what we actually used was a difference of 145,000 right there. So that's money automatically at the end of the year that's rolling back into your fund balance because it's not being used.
Can you say it one more time, the difference between salaries last year and proposed at 4% this year, $145,000?
No, so that was budgeted a year ago. So what we budgeted a year ago to what we actually used a year ago. The difference there was 145,000. So that actually will come back in because you budgeted for one, what you actually used was 145,000 less.
Okay.
So you're actually then rolling that amount back in.
Gotcha.
The savings.
So the net gain again is, can you do the net difference without the insurance savings? Because that thing's gonna float every year.
Right. So from this year's budget, from 21 budget to 22's budget, the difference in salaries, but that's not just gonna include the 4% because I can't just pull out, you've got people who, like with your deputies who get steps, and we've got other departments who do steps too. So that changed based on the numbers I currently have in there, 187,312.
And that's the coming thing we're thinking about, or what happened last year? That's the thing, not what we're talking about right now, the 187,000, there isn't. That's for the current budget we're working on.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And so that would be, but that would also include too, you know, like, your secondary road funds. That would also have some of those moving pieces where he has to, and so that's why too, some of that 145,000 from last year shows you, because there's certain places he has to budget a little extra in case he has somebody in snow and not in roads. You know, he has to have that flux to be able to do that too, to hit the DOT codes too correctly.
So with the IFRS and all that stuff, it's over 200,000 probably. I mean, with all that extra expense, somewhere not.
Well, maybe not, because this isn't factoring in the rollover, what the carryover from what's unspent. I mean,
But
that's the raw difference on the budget number, but not on the actual design.
Yeah, it's going to the savings, but our budget, we're still gonna charge this, we're not gonna not charge because of the savings, are we? We're still hitting the budget, it's just going to savings or extra money, is that right? I'm kind of confused myself. Like, we have 145,000 left over, it's in savings, if we can use the money, but we're still hitting the budget like we don't have it in savings, is that right?
Well,
We're building the general.
we're building a budget that we can, that we can pay without violating the law, that we can pay these wages, but the real impact is not, if I'm understanding correct, because of the carryover dollars that will be there, unspent dollars that have to stay in that line item. There's no way of knowing until July 1. It's all done.
So, I mean, this is just rough, but, you know, if you figure in your IFRS and your, FICA, just on those, and I just did the standard rate, not including, I mean, I wouldn't have a way to break out between law enforcement yet. It's roughly about 32,000.
$32,000 for IFRS and stuff.
So you'd be looking at a total of 219, 312.
Okay. So every point's a little over 50,000, basically, probably.
Yeah, I think it's a ballpark, what a percent means on total payroll. All right.
So, but, I mean, your insurance savings too does have I know you wanted that out of there, but I do feel like that's a significant factor that you guys need to consider too, because without everybody's hard work, we wouldn't achieve that either, so.
Correct.
All right, so,
Do you need a few minutes?
yeah, and I need some direction, because you've thrown about 5 different things at me now that you want. So, which do you want?
Well, did you get?
Well, I guess we have an idea of what, I did want to know for the next discussion, what a point means roughly, so we just know when we're talking about a raise, how much that costs in general. And then, I guess, as I'm trying to learn here, this local option, how to look at doing that, like
Okay,
you explained
you want me to look
that.
at some-
I don't know what to do with that.
I mean,
I'm just looking for ways, like if Angie deal helps, that helps.
yeah, in my 3 years, the only reason we haven't touched some of that little bit of surplus is in case something major
Right.
comes up, we need to use it
I like
for.
savings. I'm not against savings.
And that's where that $50,000-$60,000 that might be extra above the little things we do this year, such as Angie's office, EDMs, and e-study, that is still there that we can pull out for rather quick usage.
Mm-hmm.
And it also, if we don't use it during the year, it still goes back into the imbalance, so that does help keep that. And then if we have a really, really tough year, then we're able to lower that without getting it down to the point of making us scared. Such as in some counties in the past have had where they really don't know what to do because they don't have enough extra that they have to, because what's the minimum you have to keep? What's the requirement that we're supposed to keep in the county in savings or in our fund balance?
It depends on the different, we usually try to keep at least at 25%.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
in
what does
general,
the
your
state
code
recommend?
says.
7? Yeah. When you get down to 7% in a state, in a county, that's really low for emergencies. So, you know,
Typically, it's 25%. Sorry,
yeah, 25, but 7 is what they recommend.
No.
25 is what they
Usually when
recommend.
it's a quarter.
They
so that way
recommend
you
a
can
quarter.
run into
You're in
it.
trouble with that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're real in
You're making
trouble
me
with it.
super nervous
Yeah.
at 7,
Okay.
like twitchy.
We just had several little
Yeah.
things like the vest, I think
Mhm.
even, the attorney's
Mhm.
screens and things, and
Yes.
things like that, like maybe
Yeah.
5,000 here and 5,000 there.
Mhm.
But
If they could come off the budget, all of a sudden the budget would clean up pretty fast.
Mhm.
Right,
And we would be able to have a zero, I want a zero ask, is what I want, that's what I'm after here. Without hurting anybody or any services, if we could get there.
so you don't want to even levy at the 3.5, because you'd have to.
No, what I want is that, and I know I'm going to moving wheels here, but just that 145,000, I'd like to see that be zero. That means our levy would be adjusted however, that applies to all the different wheels. And I don't think we're that far from getting there. I think it's not even that, without even hurting savings, if I'm understanding what's following. I think that would, and the insurance savings is what's helping us big right now. That's
Yes.
why we're not at 245 like last year.
Right.
I'm guessing that's where the number is, it's about 100,000 off.
Mhm. Yeah, that would be.
I don't think it's gonna be that hard to get there.
No, I don't know if you really want to, I mean, you can, but it's not typical not to, I have to look at the code on it, 'cause I'm not certain on that, but usually your general basic, you typically, I mean, like, if you're looking at doing each individually, you're going to go below that 3.5 minimum, and I don't know if legally.
So if we make cuts, what if we had cuts but we didn't? We're asking for 145,000 more due to our budget. if the 145,000, if it disappeared from the budget, would we drop below any of those numbers? I don't know if that's the right way.
No,
No,
no.
you have, so you're trying to do two different things.
Okay.
So if you want to reduce this, you're gonna have to reduce your levies, which is then what you're bringing in your property tax there.
And
So
we
you
can't
can
reduce
do
it
that.
so much in a year or something?
But then that's gonna, it's kind of two moving pieces you're trying to put together. So you can do that, it's gonna reduce then, you're gonna reduce your levy amount, which is then gonna reduce your property tax asking.
That's what it
So
was.
then that's gonna reduce what you bring in. So then ultimately then when you reduce some expenses, then you're basically, you're trying to decide fund balance wise where you come out. So.
We don't take from the fund balance though, because we find 145,000 in this budget.
Right.
It's not gonna hurt our savings at all, right?
Correct.
So that's-
However, I don't know if you can just, like, with your general basic, you're not levying above the minimum currently. So even with this going up, I'd have to double check, I guess I've never.
I don't think it's more than 2%, is that what you're saying? We're not even above the.
I'm saying that I don't know if, I have to read the code because I don't know if you can go below 3.5. Like, because ultimately, if you want to do it fund by fund, you'd have to reduce your general basic minimum that's 3.5, below 3.5 to get it, your property taxes under that, the tax asking. Do you understand what I'm saying there?
Kinda.
Does that make sense? So like, if you don't want to increase your tax asking, you're basically just going to leave it at that 2,639, 427. So then you either have two options.
What would this, if our budget just happened to come out of zero? Let's just say it came out of zero before we did anything, even with raises and everything. What would the levy look like then? Would it be, if we didn't have an ask? Would it still be 3.5 or be less?
Well, it's 3.5 because that's what you're levying based on.
Based on that money, right? So if our budget just magically came out of zero this year, whether we did anything or not, we would be sitting at those levy rates and be all.
Yeah, so you want to change the levy rate if you want your,
Yeah, it's about valuation. Yeah, the rate times the valuation.
because when your valuation increases, it generates that much more, which is why you see these increases there then.
Which is, if you look at historically, Page County, I believe this is correct, the operation traditionally has been to operate on the revenue that is generated from the valuation increase and to retain or build those fund balances.
And there's been some really large swings in the way they do valuations a couple times in the last few years, which
Yes,
has
there have.
affected ag land and other things drastically. So this is our way of trying to fix some of those things if we can. Yeah, if I understand this right. And I don't think it's gonna be that hard to.
Well, where are you gonna, okay, it's not that hard, where are we gonna, what are we
Well,
gonna?
we got 150,000, I don't know if this needs to wait for the next week. We lost 20,000 from Angie's project right there. didn't we?
Okay, where's the next 130 coming from?
But
Well-
you didn't lose it, I mean, like,
They
you
don't
didn't,
spend.
because you're gonna have to change your levies then, like your levy rate.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm fine with that, that's what I'm at. Change the levy rates, I think, that's how we have to. We got 20,000 there, I've got the list here, we've got, the fuel and the sheriff's department, I think we found about 5 to 10 there that look pretty safe. We could probably get out of the budget, not hurt anybody. There's, roughly 10,000, I think was pretty, what we kind of talked about the other day. Something to do with the air cards, that's something else I was trying to understand, you guys knew more about that than I did. There's about 4,800 I got wrote down. I still believe we shouldn't do two pickups, if nothing else, just give them 25,000.
Two
But
pickups
towards-
for what department?
For the secondary roads, and spend it on one or two $12,000 pickups. There's 25,000, and what else do I got here? The attorney's deal, I think there's probably 5,000 there, I think he was just making an estimate on the screens, and then we had 10, I think 5, he acted like we'll probably cover that. Anything you guys have seen, this is just when I'm taking notes here, what's that, that's several $1,000s, isn't it?
Yeah, you're, You're about 40, I think. Well, no,
If we drop the pickup out.
Yeah.
So we're halfway, about halfway there, just in some housekeeping basically, but I don't think hurts anybody or any service.
Okay.
Then we get to salary discussion. We'll go to that next, whatever order we need to do this in. On we gotta talk about that next.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about it now, if we're gonna try to find savings here.
That's what I'm hunting for. I mean, you guys probably know this a lot better than I do. You can find just a few little places we don't hurt anybody, or anything. I think all of us elected officials would like to tell everybody how we were able to supply all services, keep the savings account, and we didn't ask for another dollar in a year that's been crazy. Be my opinion.
Well, we're not asking, I mean, I understand, we are physically not asking in this budget for more, we're asking for less, the valuations, I mean,
Right.
technically, we're asking for less dollars, there are more dollars generated from our less ask.
Yeah. Right, we need to ask just a little bit less than that, and then we would be a zero ask. But by the way, the valuations work. So that's kind of a fun accounting game to see if we can find that money.
Well, let's approach it this way then. Are there any other questions that require study from Melissa before we
even talk about it?
before we talk about that? Do you want to check on the code about the,
Well, I guess the only other thing I would need, yeah, yeah. I mean, is that you guys' wishes?
well, I guess we've got kind of an elephant in the room here that we need to figure out. I mean, I've heard from Jacob 2 or 3 times now about the salary, so, you know, and all of this is kind of bundled here. It's hard to take salaries and independent of what's over here. So I'm not quite sure what the right way is to weed through that, because it's so intertwined.
Yeah, if we find like things that aren't gonna affect anybody, then that helps us think about, before we go to salary, like that kind of helps.
Yeah.
To see how far we've gone.
Yeah. And I don't want to throw anything in, but I don't know if you looked at your conference board notes for next month.
So I think too, I'd have to double check on this, but, I think too, if you go under the 3.5 on general basic, which, I mean, if you want to get that fund down to be, like, you're not getting any additional money, then you have to wipe out your general supplemental. You can't levy on general supplemental if you're not levying at the 3.5. So, I mean, then you're taking, so, I mean, you could get some of these others potentially down, like your general supplemental and your rural, and maybe even shift some stuff from general supplemental to general basic. But like if you don't levy at that 3.5, you can't have a general supplemental levy. It's no different than like, we have to tap out our rural basic levy before we can go to a supplemental.
So if the valuation didn't change, then we would be in that situation.
And one other question we'll put back on the floor too, is we don't know yet the budget for the assessors. And from looking at it, that may be an increase, how that will affect. So even if we were to wipe this out, it could still go back on 5,000, 10,000, 50,000. But we can't. The assessors, we don't decide.
Third of the vote.
Yeah, see, that's based off the schools, the mayors, and us. So it doesn't matter if we vote for or against, the schools could outweigh us and the mayors could outweigh our vote. So we would automatically, and that cannot be just controlled by us. So even though we think we're gaining something, we may not be.
But our ask would be very, very, very small if it did go 10,000.
We don't
Or
know.
whatever.
We don't know.
I would not want to be at the courthouse steps if this board says to get to this zero, we're going to wipe out salaries or take them from 4% to 1% or 0%, and then have the assessor come in and be approved at 9%, which
Yeah.
is what his proposal is.
Because it could be done without our approval. You follow?
Well, but it'd be hard to be held accountable for something we didn't have a tiny.
Well, you'd be surprised, Jacob.
But,
Yeah, it would.
but I'm
You'll
not,
be surprised.
you know, we found quite a few dollars that don't really hurt anybody or any.
Well, but, and out of due respect, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but out of due respect, when you make a judgment that doesn't hurt anybody, I would venture a guess that the people on secondary roads.
I'm not talking about salaries. I'm
Well, no, but
talking
you're
about.
talking on the pickup, it's what, taking away
Yeah.
the pickups, or telling them that they need to buy a $10,000, $12,000.
Or one
pickup.
new one.
Yeah, but again, be careful, because I'm quite confident that they would view that differently than.
Yeah, I run a business, and some days, some years I don't get any pickups, and it's, I wish I did, but it doesn't always work that way. The salary situation, I don't know if we have enough information to even go into that, or.
But just before we do, I do have some additional, if this helps, additional information on the EMD, which I think is something we can all agree on. We want to find space to make that
Yeah,
happen.
there's some money there.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so here's what, and these are rough numbers. He's talking more with them on Tuesday. So here's a rough look, and I'm just gonna read it verbatim, of what will change the 911 budget. We will change geocom mapping, $7,500, to state mapping, $3,000, so that's a $4,500 savings.
Okay.
The interject phone system at $12,500 will be taken over by the state. We will have to pay for admin lines, an estimate of $2,000, and then add the EMD at $4,500, which was the number that kind of rang in my bell. Blake, who is his contact, said the logging recorder is part of that system. So I have to double check to see if we can get rid of our Waltech recorder at $2,000. So as it stands, he expects that we can add the EMD with a savings of $12,500. So with that in mind, should our expectation be that that budget could handle the switch without affecting local option? Is that a safe assumption, if they have a savings of that much?
I would think so.
So we can take that off of the local option table. And again, those are just estimates, but clearly there's gonna be savings in their budget, so.
Good.
Yeah, and in the code too, it says that, your supplementals are only to be used if the, basic is insufficient to meet the county's needs. So if you're under that 3.5, I don't think you have the justification then to levy on a general supplemental. So, but you can do different things. So, I mean, potentially you're gonna have to leave, or I guess I would recommend that you leave your general basic at the 3.5. So you're still gonna have an increase there, but, then based on where you want your dollar amounts to end up for your fund balance, you could either potentially look at shifting some things you currently have, hitting general supplemental if you want to look at decreasing that levy, or rural basic if you want to look at decreasing that levy a little bit.
So that would affect the fund balance in one of those by that amount.
Right.
Right. So,
Is there an easy way to tell us what line items we can look at that would impact those two budgets?
If you want to give me about 15 minutes, I can pull up something.
Okay.
just real basic though, that would be pulling savings.
I mean, like,
You're just pulling out of one side to pay the other.
Unless we lower our budget or not.
Well,
I mean, you could still do that too, but I'm
but
just
you
saying,
also
like,
have
if-
less in savings.
Because if the comp board had said 2%, if that's what they said,
Mhm.
would that have greatly affected this by 100,000 basically?
Sure.
no,
It wouldn't have.
not on here.
All right.
This is your levy.
Yeah, but based on our evaluation, we're getting 145,000 over.
So this is like what your asking the taxpayers for. So you're like, the salary's on the expense side. So like, then when you look at your fund balance, that's overall where you're gonna see that, the difference between the two.
Fund balance, right? But we wouldn't be asking, if we were 2%, we'd be asking the taxpayers for $100,000 less dollars.
No,
We wouldn't.
no.
No. Because your levy, like right now you're at, like general basic, you're at the 3.5.
We could lower our levy though, because we wouldn't need to reach this.
You could, but like then you're gonna have to find another $2 million somewhere. Because if you go under the 3.5, you can't by code levy under general
Okay.
supplemental. So you're gonna wanna leave that at the 3.5. Now what you can do is look at general supplemental and reduce expenses that are currently hitting general, because you can put anything in general basic. You just, like any expenses, but then you just have to look at then reducing that enough that you can make up a difference there. So, I mean, you're still gonna leave that and show your,
The 3.5 can stay and adjust somewhere else if it works out that way.
yeah.
Okay.
So I think for the discussion to see what would need to be impacted to lower those two levies, maybe if there's an easy way for her to get us
Yeah.
a detailed list, and how much, I mean, do you want to just recess until after lunch, or do you want, is that a 10-minute job or a 15-minute job?
You know, I'm not quite certain, Chuck, to tell you the truth. I
So-
mean, it depends how many options you want. I mean, I have a few things currently in mind, but, I guess too, I need a little bit of detail. Do you want, like, the general basic, or not the general, the rural basic reduced enough? And that is
I guess,
to,
if we're trying to
like,
zero
which
that.
one are you trying to reduce? Like, do you want to reduce general supplemental, or,
The budget line items, a listing of what budget line items are hitting general sub and rural basic, so that we can go through our books and see if there's any fat that can be cut
Yeah, that makes sense.
in order to get that to zero.
okay, say that again.
So if you're able to provide us a list of any budget line item that is allocated to general supplemental or rural basic,
Okay,
so that we can line item by line item go through and see what can be, if anything, can be trimmed without hurting operations. I think that's what the request is. I know it's laborious, I know it's,
and it's probably not just gonna be a line item, you're probably talking,
oh yeah, lots of line items.
Basically, all the
So-
salaries come out of general basic,
correct.
so.
So we wouldn't need,
So the salary wouldn't apply.
So I mean, potentially you could look at switching, like on your rural basic, you could look at switching one of your deputies from rural back to general. And right there, you're gonna pick up, I mean, this is just talking.
One deputy would be over 90,000.
You
Yeah.
can bring it up to take it down to
Yeah.
3.5, I see.
So, I mean, like, you could potentially look at, I was trying to find,
You know, in the sheriff's department alone, rural basic, car, deputy,
like, if you moved Aaron
We'll take
Riddle
care
from rural to general,
but when you do that, you're not, to Jacob's point of trying to save dollars,
you're not,
you're just shifting dollars.
Yeah.
But it allows you to,
you're shifting down.
this 3.5, we've got to get above 3.5 so we can drop back a little bit to stay above 3.5. It's just making it legal, isn't it?
Well, I think before we, I will, based on my limited 4-year experience, I would not advocate for going above 3.5. We've seen counties, and I've heard horror stories about counties that do that and never get back to their 3.5.
Well, my thing is, if we take it just enough, then we're taking it back, right? And then we have to get above, and all we're doing is getting to 3 point whatever, and then coming back to 3.5 in the end. If we find a cut, right? We can't go lower than 3.5.
You're basically, you're taking enough out of general, or, I'm sorry, rural basic, that you're gonna reduce that levy, not your general basic levy. So, I mean, you could do that, or you could choose to fund one deputy out of local option. And then, you know, look at it that way too. I know Jacob had mentioned that as
Just
well.
which Champion County comes out of which,
Yes,
so it's the same expense either way, it's just
Right.
keeping it legal with all the levy rates.
right.
Okay.
Bill, what's your pleasure?
And the salary discussion, that's a whole other animal. I don't know, that needs to happen after we know all this stuff.
Well, why don't we, can we do that now? Just get your thoughts, see where, because I think, I'd like to share my thoughts on salaries, and maybe Alan, let's just all share our thoughts. And if you want to start, go ahead.
Well, I kind of did this on Monday, talked a little bit about our salaries. I'd like to make a motion, or however that works on ours. What do we want to discuss first? We make a motion, then discuss?
So, make a motion, and then we'll discuss.
Well, I'd like to make a motion, on the discussion we had Monday.
Okay.
It's become a confusing motion, but I talked about a zero increase for supervisors, and that amounted to 4,500 to 5,000. I would like to make a motion, we cut the supervisors 4%.
So we cut supervisor 4%,
Yeah,
okay.
go back a year. We're basically taking 1 year back, or,
I cannot understand what you're saying.
Okay,
sorry. I would like to see the supervisor salary cut by 4%, basically 1 year, going back a year in time.
Okay.
You each don't give the rate.
No, I want negative,
He wants to go backwards.
backwards to try to find, that would get us
You want a
10,000.
decrease of 4%.
Yeah, that would get us $10,000
Yeah.
basically.
21, 22.
Yes, for the coming year. And based on studies, and Chuck sent me an email some things he'd done on maybe what he thought about it, but studies I've done and what we're being paid compared to the population rank. And to lead by example, I'm trying to lower the tax burden. I'd make a motion that we cut the supervisor pay alone by 4%
Okay.
off of this year.
I'm sorry, the motion is to decrease supervisor salary by
4%, yep.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second just to get us to discussion.
Okay, very good.
Do you want to go first? or-
Why don't you go first? I was looking for a document, and I don't see it here handy.
You know, I have mixed feelings about raises, but I also feel that for supervisors for the future of supervisors, we probably need to continue an upward motion. I would not vote for that decision, Jacob. I feel for the county to progress and for the potential of people still being interested in doing it. It needs to be somewhat, compensation needs to be there for those to make it an interesting position to do. I mean, yeah, I do this for the love of the community, the love of the county, the love of my fellowship for people, but also there has to be somewhat of an reward at the end of the year to make it worth the time that I give up all my spare time, family time, whatever. That's my feelings. So, yeah, I'm maybe a little bit selfish, but on the other hand, I feel I try to do the very best for a wide variety of people and their thoughts and concerns. I spend probably, on the average with county business, even though I own a business, I would say I probably spend an average of 4 to 8 hours, a lot of days discussing, answering questions. And this year has been a horrific amount of time over COVID, questions on the vaccines, directing people, being an informational source. I wish I had more time to give my place of business.
The last couple of years, I've been involved with a few things here. Spent a lot of time in the small, as an outsider. I've been paid a dime for it, it's fine. I just think we're not grossly underpaid compared to our comparable counties. We're ranked 50 in Iowa, which is right out of 99, which is right by population. I know Taylor County has a lot less people, they're paid 22,000, I think, and with benefits, supervisors receive full benefits, and that's quite a chunk of money that costs the county. I just think, I think this is a really good way to lead by example, and I saw other counties on here last year. I looked, Union County took a 3.85% decrease. Several of them did zero, several other supervisors did, and they're not being paid extravagant. And they're ranked, I did 10 on each side of us, by 3 person boards. So I think it's more the principle of the matter. It isn't even tons of dollars, it's the principle of the matter, and it basically only backs us up. I think 1 year, last year's raise takes out of account, we don't get one this year. And I don't think we're going into the Stone Ages, and I think if times need to go up, they can go up after this. But I think this is kind of a little bit of a reset. We've had back to back to back, I haven't, but the super board raises for years and years. I don't remember how many, it's been 3.75 or 4, but it's been several. So that's my thought, that's why I'm cutting my own pay here. So.
No, I understand. No, I understand.
And I put a lot of time in this too. I don't plan on shirking responsibility. So.
Jacob, that's admirable. I would just like to say, you can look at any variety of numbers and make a case, and I would agree with the statement that we're not underpaid. I don't believe we're underpaid. But I do think that one study that I sent you is important. It's 8 counties of southwest Iowa. The per capita cost of each supervisor. The per capita cost in Page County is $2.41. The average of the 8 or 9 counties, can't remember, I can't find my sheet. 9 counties. Oh, okay. The average of the 9 counties is $3.10. So we're under what the average per capita costs. When you run a business, it costs a lot more money to run a $1 million business than it does a $20,000 a year business. And I think that the per capita, in my mind, and again, people can disagree, but the per capita cost of what taxpayers are getting for value, I think it's a good value. To Alan's point, in the private sector, and I would be interested in your perspective after a year or 2 on the board, but in the private sector, the job that we're asked to do would, like most government jobs, it's easy to sit on the sideline for many and talk about government employees and how overpaid they are, how underworked they are. But for most of our professionals, if they were in the private sector, they're going to make more money. Now, the advantage is our employees get 11 holidays, 10 holidays a year. They have great benefits. Hopefully the working environment is pleasant. But I certainly believe that, if my suggestion, if you want to lead by example, donate part of your salary back to the county to offer property tax relief. But I don't think long-term you're going to, and I know you and others have talked about a 5-member board. And if that ever were to happen, the quality of people that you can attract if you don't stay up with salaries, that's what we're talking about with dispatchers. That's what we're talking about with jailers. Where are we at on the market scale?
Well, you brought up how many people we had apply for dispatch based on the salary. Well, we had, in the race I was in, 5 in the primary and another one in the general. I believe we had, at the rate we're at right now, we had a bunch of interest by very qualified people.
Okay.
All of them. I don't think we're in desperate shape of not paying enough money. And supervisor role is kind of different than all the rest of them in the light of, I think, it's a lot of times kind of a thing you do as a service to the county more than a full-time employment. You might spend full-time hours, but you're doing a big service to your fellow taxpayer.
Well, we are. And to that point, this has been a tough year. And when I sit here and Alan sits here and you sit here and you get a room full of people and they say you're a liar, they get in your face and scream at you, that's beyond public service. And that's going to drive people out of public service. So you better have some money on the table to pay people.
Well, I would not be here. I did not actually know what the supervisor's salary was till after I was elected. I didn't even know, because I didn't know where to even find that. So there's nothing to do with money for me here, sitting here. So,
Good.
and I think we're being paid pretty well, and that's why I made that motion. And I think all it does is take us back 1 year by the raises we've had over and over. And if you look at the way, look at some figures here, over the last few years, we have been number 13 and number 9 and 20 and 21 of all 99 counties of our rate of raises, of increase. We are we are climbing faster than anyone. I don't see where we're waiting.
Supervisors or is it
And
county?
supervisors. This is just for us. And now this chart here, I think, does not factor the 5, so I can't say this is completely accurate. But we're ranked 37 out of 99 and where we're paid.
And I guess in all fairness, I mean, that's one element of it. We don't, I haven't looked at all 99 counties to see where they're at on levies, fund balances, success, as far as growth, positive growth, things like that too, which may make a difference why there is a variance. I don't know. So that'd be an interesting study.
But again, we are not, I do not believe what Chuck said, we're underpaid at the current moment. We have ample people trying for the job.
And I didn't say we're underpaid.
Or whatever.
I did
You
not
said
say we're
fair. You didn't say that, yes. You said that we were paid fairly.
Yes.
It's a motion, I don't think it's a real drastic amount of dollars split 3 ways anyway, but it helps with that 145,000 we're trying to find, and leads by example, I think. So that's why I made that motion.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, I call for a vote. Let's roll call it, please.
No.
No.
Yes.
Okay. So the motion was to cut the salary by 4. Let's talk about the compensation board's recommendation countywide then, and get agreement so we can move forward and keep those numbers in the.
Are we leaving ours at 4 then? You're tying us with everyone? We're not separating us all?
Well, it can be moved either way.
I'd like to make a motion, we do 0% raise for supervisors.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, motion second, any other discussion?
I think that 0 would be more than fair, not going up 4% this year.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Yes, no, I'm not, it's just us.
No.
No.
Yes.
I'd entertain a motion on the 4% countywide that's been discussed in the budget.
Okay. I'll make a motion. Did you want to talk about compensation board first?
Oh, well, yes,
First before that motion's made?
yes, thank you.
Or do you want to do it under
We have
discussion?
the chairperson of the comp board that's here in our meeting today, and when the board met a few weeks ago, I told you and would like to repeat that we appreciate all the time and effort and study. It's a tough job. Nobody likes to talk about salaries, but you're private citizens who donate your time because you want to serve the community. We appreciate that. And it's been the practice, as far as I can remember, from covering the board as a reporter or being on the board, to try to honor what the comp board brings forward. There have been some years where that has not happened. But it looks to me like in our budget, to me, that the budget would support a 4%. And I think that out of respect to the comp board, that's how I would advocate. And I know I've had several phone calls, several comments, people not happy with that. And I understand that. I truly understand that. But I will, when you talk about leadership and you talk about leading by example, I think we can also lead by example by telling our valued employees that we stand by you. You work your tails off under I mean, you do every year, but this year was incredible. And if we have a recommendation from the compensation board and the budget will allow that, I'm proud to say that I will advocate loudly for a 4% increase. And for the people who are hurting in our community or working a job that they haven't had an increase regularly like we have, I'm really sorry, but it doesn't speak to that. This speaks to what you as a group have done and what you continue to do to serve the citizens of Page County. So thank you for your service. And now I would entertain a motion for the 4%.
I'll make a motion to approve salary increase across departments of 4%.
I'll second that. Roll call, please.
I have a discussion now.
Oh,
That
yes,
comes
I'm sorry.
after. Can I talk?
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to give them as much as we can give them. I just don't know, like you said, it's hard when you work in the private sector, and my phone's ring off the wall about this. 4% raise, while I value the immense amount of research went into that, coming up with those numbers. When you look at a lot of all I think I printed the same thing that we went over. You look at the other counties that are 10 below us and 10 above us. A whole lot of 2s and 3s and 1s and 2s and 3s and the 4s, but we're about the only 4. We're very, 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 there's not very many here I have on each category. And we rank above average. I mean, as far as higher than, okay, we're ranked number 50 in the county, and we're at 49, 44, 47. The sheriff is actually the only one that's below the state, where we rank by population.
And the attorney, I believe.
And the attorneys are a strange thing in my research because you have some of them that work off and on, so it really messes that number up. So
And there's a lot of sharing.
so it really kind of messes. I didn't include that number, but it's just strange to me that we are the 4, and the majority of what I see is at 275, 3, and again, we work for the taxpayer, and the taxpayer is, some of them are hurting, and it's just hard to see the news article story that we all got 4% raises when they might have lost their business, and the taxes are going to go up a little bit, what we control. So this is our whole job, is to try to keep a buffer to make everything work. I believe in the current conditions, 4% is probably too much this year. I wish I could say it wasn't, but my feelings are 2 to 3 in there, somewhere to match all these other counties. Not that no raise, but for myself, I want no raise. I'd take a loss, but I think it's definitely the minority of percentages amongst the counties I'm staring at here with similar populations. We're taking a pretty good jump, and we have for years. It's not like we've not done this for years either, year after year after year.
Is that last year's survey or next
This
year?
is for fiscal year 21, so it probably is last year's. Is that right?
Yeah.
It'll be last year's.
Jacob, if I may,
Yeah.
and Heidi would attest to this, the compensation board and their mission, really, there's nothing about population that they are expected or asked to study, because the population study is one way to look at it, but there are other tools that they use comparing to private sector, comparing to the region in which we live.
That's a whole different study. You sent me, your argument for the raise of supervisor was based solely on
It's
per
based
capita
on-
population
per capita,
dollar,
per
yeah.
capita
Which is,
cost.
the per capita way to do things is kind of like, you have to have certain services, whether you have 5,000 people or 15,000 at minimum. I mean, like Taylor County has to have 3 supervisors, they have to come in, they have to, and they're a lot higher, and they're paid a lot less. So anyway, I just think in the current year, current environment, I think we should adjust that a little bit and wait for a better year, or a better situation, especially with back-to-back raises year after year after year. That's my feelings on it.
I respect that, and I know that feeling exists, because I've heard it too.
It is, we get phone calls, and it is, I have been called a lot on this, and it's by people that pay the taxes, so.
But I've also have heard from taxpayers who said, thank you for your
Yeah.
county employees.
Well, definitely, and we don't want to underpay them or they won't be here. We have wonderful employees. But when we're above, we are ranked, we're very fair wages, just like our wage is very fair. I don't see this unfair wage gap by the numbers I'm looking at from last year, I guess, 2021.
Any discussion from you, comments from you?
I won't disagree with, I think Page County has been very fortunate to have good years where we can, and, you know, our employees outdid themselves from March 17th, when we were first faced with a lot of decisions. It was amazing how the department heads and their staff had so many questions and spent so many hours trying to find all those answers. And yeah, we had a few little snafus, but for the most part, with hundreds of phone calls and emails and messages, over those next 45 days, we got through that roughest period, and then it continually grown. And what amazed me was the ideas, the leadership of our department heads, our elected officials, in making sure everything ran smoothly and without any major complaints. I mean, yeah, we sure had little headaches here and there, but it was amazing. It was amazing what they have done to work at appreciating the healthcare costs. It's amazing how they've embraced the idea of safety in our environment. You know, it's 4 years ago, I had no concept of all the different intricacies of the staff and the way things work, and I'm still learning, but I have a much better understanding that we have something very special in our county. We have some top-notch people. We're very fortunate to have them doing our work. It's a great enjoyment to be a part of this organization, knowing that you don't have to look over their shoulders to make sure they're doing things correctly. And that is a value that is undeterminable for a cost. When you have leaders and employees that basically are trustworthy, dependable, honest, concise with what they do, it makes everybody's costs a lot less in the county. It's remarkable. I'm very happy to support.
If I saw that there was any salary that was abused on here that was just terribly low, I would not be advocating against giving them a raise. So, I would be all for it.
I appreciate where you're coming from, Jacob.
Yeah.
I really do, and your points are not on deaf ears. Honestly, they're not. It's just, I can't go there based on what I've seen, what I've experienced, and how I feel about the overall operation of our organization. But I understand the angst, and I think the angst is certainly more this year with COVID, and not even those who have not suffered economic harm. And there are people in our community who have not suffered economic harm, but there's been a lot of emotional harm. There's been a lot of anger. We've been through a horrible political season. So there's a lot of negative emotion that is directed toward anything positive right now. But I get it. 4% is fair, more than fair. A lot of places aren't getting raises, but I'm proud that our people are, because we have great people. And anyway, I mean, I think we've all expressed how we.
And it does equal asking the tax ask what we're doing. That is part of the puzzle, just as long as I make sure that's known.
Well, it does, but when you talk to tax ask, and this is the complicated part of budgeting, the way we collect taxes behind and how we budget forward, there's this area that is so hard to predict and manage. But actually, and I know you took issue with this during the campaign, but actually this budget is asking for less taxes. It's the valuation that is driving, that is making you pay more and write a bigger check.
That we control the levy. So that's what my whole point was, and the whole thing. We can be the buffer, is the whole thing. We can adjust and not ask for any more if we don't want to or think we need to. That's the whole point to it. But that, hey, if that's your guys' opinion, I understand. I am not against a raise. If somebody's being underpaid, I would like to give raises just as an extra if I could, but just a hard year, so.
Any other discussion before we call for a vote? Melissa, roll call, please.
Armstrong,
Yes.
Lawrence,
Yes.
No.
Okay, motion carries. So, we have lunch. And then, yeah, public comment. I think we're to that point, but before we go, just a second, before we go,
Local option, are we done there?
no, we're not.
Yeah, we've kind of moved ahead a little bit, or get to the wages to get back to local option.
Okay, so what, based on what Chris is telling us, the EMD, which I think we all agree is a high
It's not going
priority.
to have to come out of any local option, correct?
Correct. If that email, if you understood it the same way I did, because by signing up with the state system, they're able to navigate from a different private vendor
Right.
or another service and save additional dollars.
So that'll, yeah.
So that'll be an EMA budget, which again,
We don't-
EMA, assessors, public health, well, we got public health, we got conservation, we got VA, but assessor, EMA, and are the two that are still outstanding.
Yeah.
So what was what do you have written down last? We covered.
Basically, we put jail study at $40,000 would be the only thing left to come out of the capital projects. And I think Melissa was going to move a little bit of the windows out of the one, correct? Because we did,
Back up here.
because we,
So currently,
oh, wait,
I guess what I need to know is, so I had the jail study coming out of the property tax line item. You had that amount there.
right.
And then I had to take the additional $2,224 for the jail study, if you want a total of $40,000 there.
Right. Why don't we just leave, jail study to be at 37,776 out of the property tax relief?
Okay,
And then whatever's left over, instead of having to move dollars around, and it's all the same basic dollars, so just
And
leave
we
it.
still have the same flexibility to
Yeah.
build that?
Yeah.
so do you just want to leave the rest then as capital projects and that
Yeah.
is going to go towards the jail then? Or potentially the jail,
It
the
potentially
building for
could,
that?
it potentially could.
It doesn't have to be defined now for good, like once we do this, is that for good?
No, you can just put it as.
If we leave it as
You can
capital,
put it as a capital
Oh.
project and
Then
then
it's-
it's just earmarked.
can be directed toward that,
Or
or
something else?
if windows start falling out, they could be moved to that faster, so.
But you need to, Brenda needs a new window.
Yeah, Brenda
Brenda's
needs-
desperate for a new window.
Brenda may need new windows.
Brenda's
so-
first on the list.
Get her a window. So,
Yeah, sorry, Brenda, I didn't mean to scare you about windows falling.
I don't know how many thousands we get in there.
Okay,
So any other
so
line
that,
items in there that need discussing?
I don't think we do on local option
Well, I guess the question, originally you talked about moving some,
funds.
I guess the question is, do you want the levies left where they are, or do you want funding shifted, or do you want fund balances decreased, or?
You know, just
You got a whole lot of things you threw in
Yeah.
here later.
throwing my thoughts out, and I guess I'm very concerned about adjusting back to those fund balances. I don't know, I'm just really hesitant of trying to figure out how to get that 145,000, the complications of that. Are we really gaining anything? Yes, it is for individuals, but divided up between all the individuals, is it enough to make an end difference? So I'm just, and then we're going to drop our fund balances by that amount. I don't know if I don't know. And I guess if we need to make a motion to vote on that, I guess that's where, I don't know, where we're at.
Well, I think you should, if that's how you feel, you should make the motion, because I might misstate it.
I mean, basically, Jacob, if I'm not mistaken, it would be, we've got two options. One, leave it as it is, or two, reevaluate the whole budget on the rural basic and general supplemental to try to figure out how to cut 145,000, part of that out of the local option sales tax.
Is a third option to, if we had a quick 50,000, just to take that out, but with like the few dollars I found.
Right.
Would be a third option maybe, or not.
Yeah.
That'd make it kind of halfway between the other two.
But to get that to the end result of the 145, we still have to go through a whole lot of steps.
Oh, because it
To get
applies
there,
to so many
to
areas.
get there, because of all the areas that it talks about, moving everything, and then basically you're still, because if we don't all agree on those individual items, we're still just moving dollars around. We're not really creating anything except.
I'm not looking to rob savings with this.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find any.
No.
You're looking for savings, and what's been
Right,
suggested saves no
department,
dollars.
right,
Yeah, I don't want to take from our
right,
fund balance to
Yeah,
get us too
yeah.
low.
yeah. You know, I know the big issues were trucks,
Motor grader.
well, the trucks, the
dump
smaller
truck.
items, yeah.
And really, you're not going to, from a levy standpoint, you're really not going to change anything because your secondary roads is primarily
Yes,
funded with.
it has to be,
I mean, you
Yeah.
have, and you're doing the minimum from general basic
yeah,
on that
yeah.
currently,
So you can't really affect the secondary
Even
roads.
even the road general pays
Yeah.
for the road grader, right?
Right.
We pay for that.
No, that's out of secondary
You,
roads.
you do,
So their budget,
you do a,
Yes,
it's called a local effort match on that. By code, you have to give a specific percentage based on that. But then other than that, your secondary roads is funded through that road use tax money that comes through. And then the, what is I was gonna say TMJ, but I think that's wrong. I think it's TJM, I think, or transfer by jurisdiction, something like that.
I can't recall the acronym.
Something like that.
yeah.
Well, if we didn't hurt anything, I'd be proud to see that go to zero.
Mhm.
If we didn't affect
But
the service in
I-
the county or savings. That would be a proud day, I think. I don't know.
I just don't think we can get there.
I guess, I mean, you can find different ways to do everything, but I guess ultimately, is it the board's wishes to decrease these, do you want to decrease your tax asking and your levies, or, do you want to leave them, or do you want to shift from funds? I guess those are the main things.
I don't want to shift from funds. That's not what I'm looking after here.
Yeah.
Myself.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. If I'm figuring this right, and the tax dollar savings, if that's zero per capita, I know that's not your favorite, but this is one way my brain works, per capita, if that's zero, each person in Page County pays $9.61 less in tax. So the question then to your point is, do you want to, for that kind of a savings, a family of four, it's $36 less on your tax bill.
You took 145,000
Divided by 15,039
Yeah.
or whatever, is $9 per person.
Well, you can, I don't know how those numbers exactly all work out and how that's all figured, but you can $30 yourself to a fortune if you're not careful.
Oh, God, yeah. Anyway,
It has to stop somewhere, otherwise it's always, when you're picking options on a vehicle, I want this one, I want that one, pretty soon you got a pretty expensive vehicle.
you are absolutely right.
So, it's more,
I guess my point was that for those number of dollars, how much is it worth changing an accounting system or messing with levies? I guess it.
what's I know it's divided by each person, but it's $145,000 in general, that's $145,000 is a lot of money, no matter how you cut it. It is, we have a year back here, we were 66,000, that's the lowest I see on this page.
Yeah.
It's just basically, even if we just, most people's budgets don't have any padding in it, none. I mean, I noticed that there's some areas, I think, maybe not even intentional, that have a little extra, they just kind of estimate, we could find some money there to change this. This is my first budget too, so this is a lot of paper to look at all at once.
Well, I will say that, I would commend you on your preparation for the budget. It's a huge, complex web of numbers, moving parts, and to get it like you've seemingly gotten it, I applaud you, Jacob. It's not easy work when you've never touched this budget.
The gears are turning.
Well, I can tell, I can tell you put a lot of time and thought into it, and, you know, that's leadership right there.
You know, this is a part of me, Jacob, just to give you a little history. I was an accounting major in college, right? All but my last, I didn't take CPA problems and one other class to graduate with accounting. But governmental accounting was very hard in college, and it's just the fact, it seems like it'd be so easy to take that $145,000 and write a check from one account to the other. It would make it so that's how you or I would do it in our private world.
Yeah.
But we can't do that. And that's what makes it so complicated. It's very frustrating, very frustrating.
In the spirit of continuing to discuss the local option, what's our conclusion, or have we reached it?
To move forward, if we do approve the budget to get it to the point of getting read and getting published and all that, we're going to have a lot of discussion, I'm sure, in public meetings about this. We can still make, if we so decide, if we find enough difference of opinions that we have to, we still have that option of researching more and getting more information to do something, correct? I mean, if we had to make a change, we still can, correct?
You can always decrease, you can't.
Right. Yes, that's what I mean.
We always can decrease.
Any category basically can always be changed.
You know,
Down, not up.
yeah. And the other thing I too want to say, in my 3.5 years here, even though we may budget certain departments, what I have found is an admirable amount of loyalty by our leadership team in all the departments. That goes from elected down to supervisors. They don't necessarily buy something just because it's a little glitzy or a little fancy or whatever. They use good common judgment. Even though we seem to be liberal when we go to budget work, we have some very conservative members, and they'll tend to find the best deal, what they think is going to be their best value, and not just because it's the most expensive. So that helps us in the end result, makes the next year a little easier then to look at where else can we not spend money. So there's so many factors, you know, from outside looking in, it looks really tough. From inside looking at what they do, it actually is pretty positive, I've found, in my history.
And with few exceptions, I think we have some budgeters who tend to be patters, but I don't think that's the rule. I think that's the exception.
No.
And then the other comforting thing, like we had in our discussion yesterday with JD, you know, when you look at the sheriff's budget, you look at the secondary road budgets, our two largest budgets. I have some level of comfort in knowing that when we ask JD, okay, you've got in this budget year, you're going to buy that grader. We approved the budget, which impacts how it looks. But by golly, if Corey goes back to where it was in July, or beans, or everything goes belly up, I believe in my heart of hearts, he's not going to go out and buy that. And so I think it's important to know that we have team players by and large in our county that, you know, if you make your argument.
One of the things we've been dealt with every year, the last two, not quite so dramatic, is the backfill dollars. I'm trying to think how many dollars come back to the county from that into the budget. It's pretty dramatic. And we always have to assume those are going to be there, and we think again this year. But that's one of the reasons why we always try to be conservative, is just in case the state does not refund those back, we can survive. So,
And again, you know, anybody that's watched local government for a lot of years, the state continues to run responsibilities down here. They'll make mandates and then expect us to pay for it. But I am encouraged, looking ahead at the new legislative session, hearing the governor the other night, this mental health disability service budget item, which is part of our relief this year on that levy, it was reduced from $25 to $23. It had a $30,000 impact, positive to the county. But my point here is that the governor and the legislature, after 3 years of mandating these new core services and incorporating children's mental health disability into the adult system, it sounds like finally we will have a state funding stream that hopefully will continue to take some pressure off of us. Because we've done it all, as counties, we've done it totally on our own without any very limited state support. So when you talk to your legislators and you advocate and get on those ISAC tools, because it's a priority for ISAC, to advocate for us counties and our local taxpayers, because that's where the rubber hits the road.
So if we leave the local option sales tax with that one adjustment, then we are officially done.
Well,
Because all the other budgets, unless we have somebody make a motion to adjust something, we are finished.
Yeah, I mean, unless you want, levies decreased and stuff rolling around.
So all of those things, the $10,000, $4,000, even though you count the pickup, you don't want to adjust those, just leave them alone.
Well, they won't affect those, if I understand right, will be coming out of secondary roads, that really wouldn't be able to affect
The pickup wouldn't affect
Yeah,
it, but
yeah,
the attorney and
the attorney, but that's
the
pretty,
sheriff and all those things.
those are pretty minor.
Yeah, it won't add up to very much, that'd
No.
just be
Yeah, less than.
probably
15.
20,
Yeah,
30,000,
15 to 20.
25
Yeah.
off of that.
I don't know how you guys feel. To me, I think this might be one of the benefits of what we've gone through this week, is to have Melissa and her crew provide us a account listing, take just a list of items that come out of general supplemental and items that are attached to rural basic, so that we can take our books and go through that to see, as we move forward, how that relates to our ability to lower either one of those levies. Does that make sense? Because to me, when you get them in the book like this,
Yeah.
and you're going from budget to budget, and they're commingled, it's just harder. And I think that would also help us take a look and find, and maybe even discover some of those line items that may be padded, that we could, without hurting anybody, move down and have a even better looking budget, if that makes sense. Is that something you could do?
You want what now?
I want,
Sorry, just so I'm clear.
I want the winning lottery numbers. I want, if we can, a general ledger of every budget item that is assigned a general supplemental,
Okay,
and every budget item that is assigned a rural basic,
okay,
so that we can look at those for opportunities for trimming and or transfer from one sub-account to the other, in order to give some relief to rural basic. Because again, to your point, and the constituents out in the district, that rural basic, I don't have a rural basic on mine. So if we can, I mean, that's another way that we can offer some tax relief, is by shifting, and that's been done historically, shifting the burden where it comes from. Still same dollars, which, you know, you may or may not object to, people may or may not object to, but the burden of paying for it can be shifted sometimes.
and you can, I mean, I can do that, or you guys can, I mean, there's enough basically line items now that, I mean, I guess depending on how much you wanna, because I mean, some are gonna have minimal amounts and some are gonna have, you're gonna wanna do one something like in the sheriff's department where we have some that come, that's typically, I wouldn't say, I mean, I can provide you that list, but it's not typically like we're going and just pick 3 or 4 line items to move them. There's usually kind of a
Is it,
methodology.
oh, you know what? It is here. We can do the work. I apologize. You see
Yeah.
that? I mean, we can just go through
Each
book
All it
and
says
take a
general.
highlighter and use the color code, those two. Thank you.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, no, but what I'm saying too is like if you're gonna shift, like say you wanna shift a total of like $20,000 from rural basic to like the general fund, we usually don't go in and shift like 17 line items if we can just pick like
One
a
by one.
salary
Okay.
or a truck, or that's what I'm
Okay.
saying. Like,
Instead of trying to find 2,000 here and 3,000 there, you total and move one thing.
Right.
it's just something easier on a.
Yeah, for the shift, that would be easier, but for the purpose of trying to discover
Where they are, you gotta
are
find them.
these realistic numbers historically? Because quite frankly, when we go through the budgets like we do this week, you look at it, you're not really studying them, and,
Right.
um,
And that might be something you guys are gonna do is take this
Start.
moment, you can go through and highlight some of those.
yeah,
But then too, a good thing to do is, look back, because this year you can see budget to actual, but then you have that history for the last 3 years too.
That's
So
valuable.
then you kind of have that comparison of the last several years to say, okay, somebody's now budgeting $50,000. Like I always make notes when people come in, if, say they've asked for 40 in the past and 50 now, okay, they need a new such and such, or, so that way then I know. But if somebody comes in and then has a substantial increase and then doesn't, there's not really reasoning there, and you can look back for 4 years and see that, then it kind of,
and then talk with the department head and say, look,
Yeah.
I know why you're putting it here because it could happen, but it hadn't happened in 3 years. Let's take it out of the budget, and if it does happen, we need to amend it.
Yeah, just do an amendment.
So that the budget looks as clean as it can. And I think we might be surprised at the number of items that we could have those discussions on.
yeah,
And, because ultimately, the cost of providing service, take the salaries out of it, take the insurance, the actors and all that stuff you have.
Right.
But the operational, you're gonna buy so much gravel, you're gonna spend so many hours on the road, you're gonna spend so many hours on equipment, or so many dollars on equipment.
Right.
So
but too, you're kind of looking at 2 different things, because you're looking at, reducing, but also too, like, if you're shifting, that's another thing.
yeah, if you're shifting, you want to shift big dollars, like
Right.
a deputy or something like that. Okay. I think I know that would help me, and probably for future budgets.
And we probably need to start looking and deciding, we'll have a pretty good feel in November, December. We should be able to start seeing trends for this next year, where maybe we need to have a work day where the 3 of us go through and take our notes and start, so that way it's ahead of you, and when you send out the requests, it may just make it a lot simpler. So we at least have more direction involved. Okay.
Because, I don't know, we can do a better job, I'm not questioning, we can do a better job on the budget. I don't think there's any question that we can, but overall, we've done a decent job. And, but whatever we can improve, we'll work toward that end. Okay, so local option, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the local option sales tax controlled budgets with the changes that we made today.
And that's a 37,000 to jail.
Jail study. Yep.
Study and maintenance or whatever.
Right.
Savings. I'll
Yep.
second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. All right, we, thank you for going so long. We're ready for public comment, and I know Heidi had raised her hand a few minutes ago. If you come to the microphone, please, so that our Zoom audience can hear you.
I am seeking clarification on your budgeting. Let's say I'm a director for Department X and I have a board. I come before you as the director for Department X and I say, for the staff, we're going with the county compensation recommendation for 4%. My board members want to bring me up to market rate and my salary is going to increase by 8%. Do you have any say over what their board says, or do you just have a say over the budget I present, that it's accepted or is it decreased? I'm just trying to understand the lines of definition on the supervisors of what they can approve or say no.
Okay, that's a great question, and it's the grayest area of this job. Those boards have the authority, is my understanding, to independently do that. We have the authority to allocate a certain number of dollars. I mean, if they come in with a raise of 8% and the budget doesn't support that, I mean, they can still pay 8%. We'll have to find, we'll give them X number of dollars and here's all the dollars we have. If that answer, I mean, it's really, it's in their
I'm just
authority.
saying that you are honoring what that other board said.
Yes.
And you are honoring that. If you accept my budget, then you're honoring an 8% increase for me as a director.
Correct.
I'm just thinking, Jacob, that's one thing that you don't see in the paper. You might see that you got a 4% increase, but you don't see that Heidi Carter, who's the director of a department, got an 8% increase.
Yeah, and I had some of the issues, conservation's gonna get a little larger and the sheriff's department things, but that,
Yeah.
the way I look at that is the board made that decision and it might have been on a step system or whatever. I'm brand new. The thing I understand is we just control the total dollars you get, but if you can't reach the 8%, then the board's gonna have to decide what to do with.
Right, I'm just saying as a compensation board, though, that's what Chuck was saying, that we were honored for what we suggested, and I understand.
At 4%,
Right.
so some people get more than, so you're thinking some of these other places get way more than the
Yes.
numbers, what you're saying?
Right, and I'm just saying that, I'm not begrudging anybody any pay. I'm just saying it looks at it a bit differently, that our compensation board recommended the 4%. You have to decide if you can stand that or not. But another budget has also recommended that their director gets way more than a 4% because they're trying to bring them up to market rate. And you have the ultimate power of the purse. Is that correct? That you can say this budget passes for Department X, or no, Heidi, that's too much money. You've got to cut it by $30,000 and you've got to figure it out with your board. Okay.
And we have. I mean, over my 3.5 years, we had an instance where we had to make cuts on a particular budget that had a board. So it does happen.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of that depends on how we feel they're performing, their values for the county and so forth. So,
Okay. And then my other comment was, I was on the compensation board and I really enjoyed it because it's the part of the foundation of the government. You have to have a budget. And we did look at it with population. I couldn't see a correlation there, evaluation. It was also quite different. I urge you, as a board of supervisors, to look at your compensation, because you're choosing one factor, you're choosing a different criteria. I have my criteria, you might have a criteria, and I really urge you to look at this throughout the year instead of just the compensation board gets a notice a week or two in advance. We meet, we make a decision, and we move on. And I think if we really look at some of the other counties, because Madison County increased their employees, elected employees rates by 13 through 11%.
Right.
And so I would be interested in not usurping you, but as a member of the compensation board, trying to understand from other counties, do they look at the percent they pay out in salary? Do they look at some of the market rate? Do they look at the other counties? Do they look at valuations? And if you could agree on some of the criteria and then hear from your department heads, as in Carl, because we had a conversation that it's more caseload, he knows the lawyers, I don't. And maybe start those conversations and have it throughout a year. When it comes to the compensation board time, we could really get your input or meet with the compensation board, not in a public meeting. You know, if you want to have more of a I don't know, I have to check code with that. For the compensation board, I'm not talking about supervisors. If we could meet a day earlier and have a study day, because the issue of pay is always going to come up every year, private or public, it's part of the package. And maybe if we spent time studying it throughout the year with other counties and agreeing on criteria, we could really get a better sense of where we do stay in each county. And thank you for the answers today. I appreciate it because it's a bit confusing when you're a person from the public hearing, well, I want my director to get a lot more money than that. And then for the elected officials, then they have their board too. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Heidi.
Thanks, Heidi.
Any other public comment?
Madison County's 13% here, which I did notice was a big difference. They, yes, no, that is a good point to make. That's the only big one. They're still paid 400 and now about 300 some dollars less than we are supervisor.
How many less, 300?
They get, look at my numbers wrong here. 36,383. We get 36,752 before this raise we just did. So even with the
3 or 5, do you know?
They're 3. Yeah, they're 3. I know that for a fact. So we are still paid a few $100s more than them before a raise after they had a 13% increase. They were trying to do a catch-up thing. I think their population's fairly similar. So again, that looks like a huge raise, but it's.
Well, that was part of the point.
Yes,
When
it's.
we talked to Madison County, our budget is that, we just asked them and say, what prompted you
To do this.
to do this?
Right.
How did you do that?
Right, right. That'd be interesting.
That'll wait till after March 15th.
Well, and, you know, the market increases that we probably need to look at for some of the departments, dispatch, sheriff, jailers. What we want to try to avoid is having to do that. And I think if we get our heads together and figure out where the gap is and how much we can do each year, or 2 or 3 years, whatever it takes.
Well, they took a 3.5 or something to give the dispatch more money. We could have found money right there to fix our dispatch problem that we seem to have, our jailers, and not hurt any elected official too terribly.
Right.
But to split that pie.
Well, do we control the dispatch? No. Well, we have the budget.
Yes, they're not under emergency services, they're under dispatch, or what else? They're under the general fund.
They're in the general fund. Okay,
There you go. Okay.
they are in the that's confusing because the EMA and 911 has evolved over, both have their own boards. The EMA board will present a budget. The 911 budget is out of our general budget. So, and it is confusing because those two boards are basically the same people. It's quite interesting, to say the least.
Just putting that out there, that I think would be a great thing to slowly work towards, understanding where we are in our communities and how we are in our
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Really good.
Any other public comment before we ask to adjourn?
I don't think anybody. I'll make a motion to adjourn if no more public comment. Oh.
Is there anything else you want put back on for Tuesday? I'm a little confused.
I don't,
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I don't think there's anything to add.
Well,
Unless.
no, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Were you going to look at cutting things out of the budget though? Because if so,
We had very few minimal things that I think we can cut when we can't cut out secondary roads. We're somewhat limited on, there's pretty small items there. I don't know if we want to or not.
So do you want to have one more day with it? Or,
If this is a question, if people are very upset about, say, pickup, for instance,
Mhm.
when would that come up again?
Say what?
If people from the community were upset about purchasing new pickups and things of that nature.
public hearing?
Public hearing.
Public hearing,
There's
we
two
can,
different, we have two.
we can take an action then to do something or not. We can strike something or not.
Yeah, we
I don't know
can,
how this works exactly.
we can.
I'm just asking, people
Yeah.
ask me all these questions, I don't
Yeah.
know the answer to some of them.
Yeah,
You
we
know.
can go down based on that public hearing, like go down.
Because we'll have two public hearings, correct? We'll have one in first part of March or the end of February.
It's, probably end of February, I'll get
And
it.
then,
You have to have it,
Yeah.
I have to look at the date.
That's a new requirement, second year, that if you exceed a 2% increase, you have to have the public hearing.
You have to have the public hearing no matter what.
Yeah.
You just have to, everybody has to have it. It's just, you have to show that 2%. There was some confusion over that last year, so.
But I mean, in essence, the end result, it created an additional public hearing with that new rule. All right, we take a motion then to adjourn.
I'll motion to adjourn.
I'll
Okay,
second it.
motion, second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you